Good morning, everybody. I'll call to order the Electoral Area Directors Meeting for Thursday, May 15th. First order of business is acknowledgement of First Nations. The TNRD acknowledges that we connect with many First Nations communities across our vast regional district, and today are located on the Tecumseh-Secwepemc territory, situated within the unceded and terrestrial lands of the Secwepemc Nation. The TNRD appreciates the partnership that we have with Tecumseh-Secwepemc and respect the territory and land on which we gather today. So are there any additions or deletions from the agenda? Anything changed? Director Grenier.
Just wondering, Chair, if we can get an update from staff on the planning services discussions with the City of Kamloops.
And we can probably discuss that in a roundtable meeting.
As you see.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Next is the adoption of the minutes. Are there any errors or omissions? Director Grenier.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's indicating that I was the vice chair on March 27th, and I think it became Director Onslow at that point. Not sure if that's on the minutes.
Thank you, Director Grenier. We'll get that fixed and amended on the in the minutes.
Okay. Call the question. All in favor of the minutes? Carried. Next on the agenda is delegations. Minister of Transportation and Transit. Is there delegation? It looks like we might have a fairly interesting. I hope everybody's not going to speak.
No.
Oh, no, you're allowed to.
No, we just have
Anyway.
a presentation here that will get loaded up.
Yeah. Thanks very much for coming. The floor is now yours. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. Nice to see everybody again. Thanks for having us here. We're here today. We're just doing what we're call our MOTT now, spring update. In the past, we've heard that lots of time in the past has been Brad, Sam, and myself, but we've heard that some more representation from the ministry was asked for. So we've got a few other districts online here, and you'll see Sean Houlihan online. So we can go to the next slide. That's probably me. So quick agenda here, who we all are, what we've got going on for spring and summer activities, and then some of the projects by the areas that you can be expecting. So yeah, just quickly here, myself, Graham Schimpf, District Manager for the Thompson-Nicola District. You can see on the screen, that is the boundaries of our district. And then we've got two service areas in our district. We've got Service Area 14, which is Nicola, and Brad Bushel is the Operations Manager. And YRB Nicola is the maintenance contractor. And then we have Service Area 15, which is the Thompson area, and Sam Pantaleo is the operations manager, and maintenance contractor is Argo Road Maintenance.
You run that part. I'm Sandy Griffiths. I'm Graham's counterpart, the district manager for transportation and transit out of the Caribou. So we have a small section of TNRD, and we have three service areas. Service Area 16, Operations Manager Brandon Klingbeil, and that's one that touches the TNRD. We've got Service Area 17, which is the Williams Lake area, and Service Area 18, which is Quesnel.
Good morning. I'm Sean Houlihan, District Manager for the Fort George District. We have three service areas for TNRD. Service Area 20, Robson, covers Highway 5 area. Some of you may know our Operations Manager, Grant Erickson. He oversees Service Area 20, and our maintenance contractor, EAM Robson.
Perfect. And then there's a little bit of the TNRD that goes out to the east, which they weren't able to make it here today, but that would be the Okanagan-Shuswap District, and Bailey Chamberlain and Amy Berry with AIM Maintenance. So yeah, so winter's over. Pretty favorable winter for us. So we thought we'd focus on what's looking ahead for us. So currently, and every service area is going to be a little bit different based on how winter ended and where the maintenance contractor is at. But so, very generally, sweeping's underway in most areas. We're out there doing the bridge washing, grading, and dust control. You'll see some line painting, and then probably not quite yet, but pretty quick, you'll see some mowing happening out there. Once we get all those kind of spring clean activities done, you'll start seeing some more of the major maintenance activities, the graveling, the culvert replacements, culvert repairs, and guardrail, and cattle guards. So while we're doing all that also, we are constantly monitoring for incident response for any slides or slips on any roads out there, incident response if it's commercial vehicle incidents or passenger vehicle incidents, freshet, and wildfire. And then where we need to, we're in touch with the emergency personnel here at the TNRD. Just a little quick highlight on some more of the major things that you'll see around the Thompson-Nicola district and service area 14.
Sure. Yeah, so 14 starts at Walloper and heads south down to Portia. We do the canyon, all of Highway 8, and a little bit of the canyon down to Jackass. So you see on the screen there, we had some projects completed there, big ones. The Highway 5A way in motion system that was installed down by Nicola Ranch on Highway 5A as you head towards Kamloops from Merritt. It's a scale system that's built into the ground that measures trucks as they go by, takes pictures, and sends information to the scale shacks here. And if there's something of concern, the guys can come down with CVSE and speak to the drivers at Nickham or at Knutsford. And it's been very successful so far. We've got lots of good information off that system, and it's been pretty good. The Falls Creek and Nickaman River Bridge were both impacted in the 2021 atmospheric river event, and they've been successfully completed, and they're much better now and more resilient. Still ongoing is the Tank Hill project at the bottom there between Spence's Bridge and Lytton. It's we're going over top of the rail line now instead of going underneath it with that jiggy jog. So that's going to be, I think it's projected to be done this fall or early next spring. So that's good. It's going to be nice. It's a bit of a hindrance right now, but it's a very good project. We have paving contracts awarded from Jackass to Gladwin on the Trans-Canada. That's a big stretch. It's a huge paving project, which will be started here soon. Highway 5A, Nicola Lake to Long Lake. It was severely rutted, so that hot in place asphalt train is actually working right now. It started on Monday. So it's working there to resurface all that highway system through there on 5A. We have another paving project, Highway 97C, Pothole Creek to Elkhart up on the connector towards Kelowna. That's another big one. And I think we have another one on Highway 5 south of Merritt, another big one on the Coquihalla, but it's maybe outside of the TNRD, or is it just inside? We might have forgot that one on there. It's going out to bid as well. And then Highway 8, we have all the construction sites underway right now. There's been really good progress on those as well. So we're hoping to see some of those completed this summer as well. That's it for 14.
There you go. Thank you, Brad.
Yeah, and for service area 15 Thompson, go over some completed projects. So Highway 5 North, we completed the Badger pullout. So this is an area just south of barrier for southbound traffic that commercial vehicles can use as a pullout, as well as provide our commercial vehicle safety enforcement officers a safe area to inspect commercial vehicles on that corridor. This spring, we also completed a large brushing program from barrier all the way to our district boundary north of Avonby on Highway 5 North, brushing in both directions, as well as Clearwater Valley Road and Dunn Lake Road, really improving sight lines along corners and improving the brush on those routes. As well as Dunn Lake Road in the Sim community in Chuchua. We completed a culvert project there at New Halston Creek. So there's a past freshet site that is now improved drainage through that route. Some projects to expect coming into this year. So on Highway 5 North, again, we have the average speed over distance project occurring on the corridor, should be going live this summer, as well as on Highway 5 North, some dynamic warning signage in Fish Trap Canyon. So when slippery conditions are present in the wintertime, there will be signs, electronic warning signs in either direction that will blink at motorists to help slow them down in these conditions. Once slippery conditions are no longer present, they will automatically turn off. Further north on Highway 5, Cove Creek at Martin Creek FSR. Again, this is a historic, I'll say undersized flooding culvert. So that is now, we're boring in a larger pipe there to have additional culvert width at that location. That will be kicking off later this year. Some local paving here, Highway 1 East. So from Kokanee Way, continuing on where we left off last year to Monty Creek. That will be 4 lanes, 2 lanes in either direction. Will be all repaved on Highway 1 East. Looking forward to that one. Along with Halston Avenue, both lanes. So where we completed the bridge project last year to the junction with Highway 5, both directions, all those lanes will be repaved. We're seeing some rutting and some deterioration. Along with Sun Peaks Road, from Whitecroft up to the municipality of Sun Peaks, and Paul Lake Road. And that is from the junction with Pinnetan Pritchard to the condos heading up to the Paul Lake community and Harper Mountain. One additional one is Chief Louis Way here, again, in Kamloops, to Kamloops region. That is, again, a kind of historic undersized culvert that is being upgraded to a bridge. So that will be completed starting this summer into the fall. Additionally, projects that are being worked on and continually discussed is the Highway 5A Cardew Hill chain up off. Again, not currently funded, but we are still pushing for that one to go forward. And along with the Red Bridge planning. So continuing off the historic loss last fall. Again, we did complete the decommissioning cleanup of that bridge this late winter. And then the continual planning is ongoing in that regard. Thank you.
Thanks, Sam. We've got.
Yeah,
Sure.
go ahead.
Hello, everybody. Not nearly as exciting as Service Area 16, only because we just have a little piece of our area just kind of extend down to the TNRD. But we do still have a couple things going on. And just for an overview of Service Area 16 as well, the TNRD section kind of starts around 70 Mile and then extends down to Spence's Bridge, and then east just as far as just a couple kilometers east of Cache Creek, and then also west kind of towards the Littlewood area once you butt up against the SLRD. So we did have some projects completed last year. Particularly, we had a Highway 97 crack sealing program run down through 70 Mile. We did it in conjunction with our regional program as well as our quantified program through our maintenance contractors. We were able to marry those up and get a good swath done. Projects to expect this year. I know, Sandy, you've been working directly with our traffic engineers regarding a 70 mile speed reduction.
Yeah, I'll just speak to that briefly. We've met this earlier this spring or late winter with the TNRD to talk about the 70 mile speed reduction. It is in the works. We're still waiting for final approval to come from the chief engineer. So until that time, I expect that to happen within the next week or so, or a couple of weeks. So we'll definitely make an announcement and work with the director and get some messaging out to the community as well. So more to come on that one.
And then, moving into some paving this year, we do have some paving happening in 97C, particularly from the brake check back towards closer to Highland Valley Copper, and also including Barnes Lake Road in that one as well. And then finally, some projects being worked on. We're just looking at some rockwork improvements along Highway 12. For those who are familiar, we have the Texas Creek Slide, a lot of rock mesh around there. We're looking to improve that and kind of move forward with some improvements along that section, and just exploring scope at this moment. So, yeah, that's 16.
Thanks, Brandon. And Sean.
For Service Area 20, for projects complete, we had just wrapped up our Alberta avalanche path. There's a substantial slope on the east side of the highway that is an actual avalanche path, not quite as mountainous as other ones, but we did some slope stabilization there, planting trees, which has been taking off wonderfully. For projects to expect, we have quite a substantial rehab to the 6 Mile bridge. That's just 11 kilometers south of Blue River. That's a full Deck resurfacing, new joints, new armor, new concrete bearing pedestals and assemblies, and some steel work. That should be on BC bid shortly with an expected completion fall 2026. And then this year, we're just waiting for some fish windows, and there's some complications with some swallows, but Alberta South Bridge, and that's 44 kilometers south of Elmont, so very close to the TNRD border. There's some scour there that will be doing some protection, putting in some riprap, and that should be getting going sometime this summer. We just don't have a date as of yet. That's all for Robson.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Sean. Thought we'd highlight some of the major initiatives. I mean, we work with the TNRD team all the time, but two of the major things that we have going on now, and at risk of increasing Jamie's blood pressure right now, the TNRD Gateway signage program that we're working on, and then the North Thompson Emergency Marker Pilot Project that we're working on with Jason and his team. That was everything from us, Chair. Hopefully we didn't take up too much time, but over to you.
Thank you very much. That was probably the best and most information we've had all at once. It's great to see that. Anyway, is there any questions from the directors? Yeah, go ahead, Director.
Myself. Okay. Thank you very much for the presentation. This is for Sean, online question. I am curious if there's any line painting planned on Messeter Summit this year, because there essentially are no lines on that hill.
Yep, there'll be line marking. They're just working their way through our network, and it is on the schedule for sure.
Okay, thank you for that. And then I'm also curious, one more question for you, and I have spoken with Grant Erickson about this, but there's extensive damage to the roads in Blue River and Avola caused from the heavy traffic with the Trans Mountain expansion, and those roads have not been repaired yet. And I was expecting that repairs would have been seen last year, but do you have an update on that? Are there repairs coming to those communities this year?
We're still in talks with Trans Mountain on the package, if you will, of getting some funds from them to start actioning repairs within the region. I know that similarly up near Valemount on Whiskey Phil and Cedar Side, there's also damage. We're looking at those as well as the other locations. So work is being done. I just don't know. It's I think 90%. I think I saw the signed copy from Trans Mountain come in just Monday, I believe. So it is in process.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep.
Director Morris.
Thank you. I've got just quite a few comments, but I'll go quickly on these ones. One of which is thank you on the fish trap. I can imagine that has been quite a project, and certainly, so the Area P, just as a reminder, by the way, I sort of stretch all the way along Shuswap Road, all the way out to the edge of the Adams, and they go all the way up to just north of Fish Trap. So it's fairly extensive, that's for sure. And also the work that you're now planning on Paul Lake Road up to the Harper Ranch, Harper Mountain, pardon me, much appreciated. The other side of that is the roster of complaints that I have received from many of our constituents in Area P, and they have come from everywhere, and I'm sure it's not a surprise to you. You're not always CC'd on it. I certainly am, and I do get a lot of phone calls. The McGilvery area, the Whitecroft area in particular, has now come up more so than before. Pinnetan as well has come up. Knuff Lake always have had concerns expressed there. Usually the cattle guard's falling into the, down. But in general that, and then the up Lewis Creek Road. So rather than go through any of the details for all of you, what I did do is put together a package of the correspondence that I have received. Wasn't able to tape the phone calls that I received as well, but I do have this for you, and it's got ugly little sticky notes to make it easy to find everything, and hopefully where we can get to is to have a conversation with how do we resolve these, because I'm 3 years or so on this board, and a lot of these are the same issues over and over again. This is not new news to you. So, but what I would like to do is share this with you. And maybe there's a way we have a bit more of a conversation and think about how do we help mitigate this? How can we get ahead of this? Because clearly this has been a long-term issue. So thanks for being here.
No, I appreciate the comments. Yeah, and thank you for the kind words and the start of your talk there too. And yes, those are not news to us, and we will definitely take that information. So thank you for that regarding the complaints. Just the season this time of year, coming out of winter, a lot of our gravel side road networks are washboarded and are potholed and do require grading. Our maintenance contractor, Argo Road Maintenance, is working through their list of roads. Everybody wants their roads done first. I get that, but it is simply working through the list of roads. With that, I can share Argo has hired a grader trainer. So the quality of grading that is occurring is looking to improve with that, with the whole intent of when they grade, it holds up longer. With that too is the I guess, type of road surface they are grading. So continual graveling projects, and I'll call them road improvements, working through our contractor's quantified plan and whatnot to give our maintenance contractor a better surface to grade with. Knuff Lake Road specifically, I know you touched on that bottom piece of it. That is part of the paving project. The existing pavement will be repaved. There is a culvert we're just looking at culvert sizing right now, but repairing that first, getting it properly graded, and taking note of your cattle guard comment there as well. So we'll look into that as well. So a little bit more information, and yeah, thank you for the comments. We'll definitely take those away. Yeah, thank you. And I will just add, and I think probably just for everyone, I think when talking to constituents, calling our road maintenance contractor first at their 1-800 number, that's a 24/7 line that they man, and that will be their quickest response in order to get action. But if they're not satisfied with their action or the response they're receiving, absolutely, our phones are open to assist in responding to these phone calls. So thank you.
Director Houghton?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to echo Director Morris's, my bulk of the calls lately have been probably timing of the year, but the graveled side roads. And what I found very beneficial last year, Sam, is when you and I and Justin met at the Argo office to go over, what is expected of a highways maintenance contractor? What are they legally bound to do? And then depending on the classification of the road, what is their responsibility? And I think that'd be very beneficial for all of us here, because I'll pick one, our old road, Jackson Road off the farm, 3 houses on it, but everybody wants it potholes filled and graded. But probably on a scale of things, it's probably way down here, but those people expect some, where does it fit into the scale? And, Weir Road, Long Lake Road, all of those side roads up in Lee's area, everywhere. And like, what is expected of a contractor? And I know that their job is to maintain, but then we expect them in some cases, I think, to rebuild. And there's a fine line there where there's cost plus deals that, okay, go ahead and do that, Argo or AIM, and we'll pay you whatever. And I think that would be beneficial for all of us if we could, maybe have a training session one day throughout the career of a TNRD of what is expected. I think it would help us learn when we field these calls that, because we all try to look after the constituents, but I also see on the other hand, the side of the road maintenance contractor too. So they're out there trying to do their job within a certain budget that they get paid to do. Like the conversation we had, Sam, on Rose Hill Road, more houses move in, they want more gravel. Well, do they get more gravel or do they not? I mean, but it would sure be beneficial down the road. Thank you. And thanks for everything.
Yeah, no, Doug, I mean, you hit a lot of topics right on the head there. I mean, the game is prioritization. Like there's limited resources, both on the contractor side and both on the ministry side for going out and graveling new roads and fixing culverts and doing all that. So it is a prioritization exercise, and yeah, primarily based on road classification and then safety items. So, but yeah, happy to set something up if people are interested in kind of a working session, maybe we can call it, at working through some of the, you know, what goes into maintaining roads.
Thank you,
Sorry,
Chair.
I didn't put my mic on. Go.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Just two questions. One, the average speed over distance project. Just for more awareness, what can we expect that data to be used for, or what was the intention with that? Thank you.
Yeah, so the project was really set up to track driver behavior through two segments on the corridor on 5 North. So it'll anonymously, you know, grab vehicle information while it enters the segment and then when it exits, and then it'll give us a lot of data, more than I even know about, I'm gonna admit that right now. But it'll just be able to, our engineers will get some driver behavior data on, you know, average speeds through the segment, vehicle volumes through the segment and stuff like that.
Thank you very much. And then the with regards to the gateway signages, I'm sure you can appreciate how, you know, some of our concerns for our residents is, you know, as projects gets, the longer we wait, the more it costs. We just hope, you know, if there's ever any advocacy required from the board, feel free to contact us, letters of support or anything. We are keen to get that done. Thank you.
Director, oh, sorry, you want to answer that? Go ahead. Director Thor.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I'd like to say I really appreciate the updates on Highway 8 and Highway 1. The contractors and the project managers are really good at letting me know if something's going to be closed or things like that, so I can get it out to the constituents. I know they can find it on Drive BC, but people kind of look for the easiest way sometimes. So I do appreciate that. Thank you for getting those lines done on 16 Mile. I now have happy constituents out there. They still would like the speed reduced, but one step at a time. So thank you very much for getting that done. That they're very pleased with that. Highway 97, I've got a couple questions. Highway 97C and Barnes Road, when do you anticipate paving there? Then, okay.
Sorry, yeah, sorry, I just jumped right into it. Well, we don't have an exact schedule yet. I don't believe it's been awarded perfectly yet.
Okay.
I'll have to circle back to the project team on that one. But we don't have a schedule sorted.
So sometime this summer.
Certainly this summer, yeah.
Okay. Highway 12, big slide. You're doing some rock scaling there. Will there be any closures?
Most likely, that's what we're determining right now with scope, is how that looks.
Okay.
Just because, yeah, it's a narrow area through Big Slide, right? And yeah, it's gonna be a tricky one. So that's a primary piece of what we're looking for, is just a traffic management piece of that.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Lytton Ferry closures. Are you anticipating any this summer with the water levels? Or do you think we're going to be okay this spring?
From here on out, the water kind of rises with the snow melt and stuff, so it should be good. We were at the lowest point in the late fall last year, winter. So it usually goes up and we'll see that cycle again next winter.
No, but I'm talking about with the high water, we usually.
Oh, with high water?
Yeah.
It just depends on how much debris is in the water. So it just depends what happens upstream of us, right? So if we have a slide or anything up north of us that comes down and brings debris down there, obviously you can't be running the ferry across
Okay.
on a cable with large debris coming down. So it's well monitored. I think the majority of the snowpack is kind of melted off for the most part. So we're seeing the river rise right now, but we're not seeing large debris problems at this point.
Okay.
If it does happen, we'll have some notice, and it's usually sort of short in duration too. So that's
Okay. So all going well, it might not close this year.
Yeah.
Okay. Other than the debris maybe that came from the Farwell Canyon issue.
It could be any point north that feeds the Fraser system. That debris will end up getting down to Lytton at some point, but
Okay.
I think the big slide that happened last year up there, that large one, I think that one is all but flushed out. We haven't seen super high water that's brought stuff off the banks back into the system, so.
Okay, last question. Botany Road, safety issues. There's some corners up there, lockbox or maybe rail guards. We did have an accident up there. Oh, it's probably about 12 years ago. There were 3 people killed. Botany Creek Road. So there are some issues. I hear from the neighbors occasionally because I live at the bottom of it. So I don't know if there's anything that could be done or if somebody could take a look at that. And there's a couple of corners that if we get bad road conditions or we've got these big trucks going up there to the compost facility, there is definitely potential for something bad to happen again.
You can definitely look at it. Typically, we only place CRB on paved surfaces, so depending on what the surface is.
Part of it's paved,
Okay, well, there's a warrant system for it. We can have a look if there's concern. there.
please. Do I need to formally send you an email
Yeah,
or?
please do.
Okay.
The locations you're talking.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
Director Smith, did you have something to say?
Thank you, Chair. No, I just wanted to thank MOT for listening to all my whining. And it's a long road to take on, and it was in place before I got here. But so I'd just like to thank Sandra and her team for listening, and I know that the residents are going to be happy, and I'm just appreciate the effort. Thank you.
Thanks for that. Be in touch in the near future, finalize it.
Director Grenier.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, folks, for being here. I wonder if we can go to the slide that talks about Tranquil Chris Creek Road.
Yeah, that will be what we have for the Thompson.
And so the Tranquil Chris Creek Road had about $400,000 of work done in November.
Correct.
And reports are that the work has been damaged or destroyed. And the Tranquil Chris Creek Road, as you know, we've been talking about this forever. And it's not on this slide that I can see. Where does it rate in terms of your priorities? Because it had $400,000 spent 6 months ago. That part has been destroyed. I don't see it even as a report that we're looking into it or fixing it. And I'm not sure what to tell the constituents that live along that part or live along that road.
Yeah, no, thank you, Director. Yes, it's not on there. We did do some work out on there in the fall. You are correct. I know the road well. I was at the end of it 2 days ago. The first 4 kilometers that we did the work on definitely didn't hold up like we expected it to. I wouldn't call it damaged, but it is washboarding up. Spent quite a bit of time over the past 2 weeks out there. I think it's definitely a combination of the grades we see on the hill and the type of traffic, specifically empty trucks. So yeah, disappointing. We're all disappointed. I'll admit that. We were hoping we've used that product elsewhere in lots of other locations, and it's held up very well. It didn't in this instance. We've heard a lot from residents out there as well. To be completely honest, I sent an email out yesterday. My observations and their observations are quite different. There is some spots on the road that need some work, but I can tell you when I got here 10 years ago, that road is in better shape than it was 10 years ago.
Thank you for that. And so just so that you can hear, residents tell me that the road has never been as in bad shape, and they actually used 10 years. 10 years ago, they said the road was in great shape. One of the comments that I'm hearing, and this is just the feedback, so we obviously all are here to make the situation better. And I'm hoping we can find a way to make the wrap work. What I'm hearing is that the section that the city of Kamloops did, which was just before that section, is holding up very well. And the question is, what is the material that they use to keep that road being held up well? And can it be applied on the rest of the Tranquil Chris Creek Road?
Yeah, the short answer is no, especially on the hill. It's a very different scenario. They're a flat grade. They have the same type of traffic, absolutely, but they don't see the like 7 to 8% grades that we see on the hill. So
Okay, so we're aware of the Tranquil Chris Creek Road. Last year, when you were here, we talked about the left turn lane on Rodeo Drive off of the Trans-Canada Highway where there's been accidents and death. And it had been, as I understand it, there was a previous study that supported a left-hand turn lane. Last year, you reported that you were updating the study. Can you give us an update on that?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Yeah, we are still seeking funding for that project. So it sits in the list of, been planned, got a functional level design and awaiting funding for more design or funding.
So it has been designed?
It's to a certain degree. I'm not exactly sure what level of design. There's levels of design our ministry goes through. But I can definitely get back to you on what level of design that we're at and where we are. But
And would it help move this process along if we got some letters of support from the people that live along Rodeo Drive that have been asking for this for a period of time? Like in your process of getting funding for that, what can we do to help you get that project under construction?
yeah, I think if Mr. Graney, if you wanted to send a letter to support the project, that would be helpful. I'm not sure, if we have 75 letters from residents, I don't know that's going to bear any much more weight than a letter from yourself.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Chair, if I can continue, we had the speed limit, much like Director Smith, we had speed limit discussion. There was a test barrier put up by Ministry of Transportation along the Cherry Creek area. And so last year we asked about whether a speed reduction, just to let people know that there's a change condition potentially coming along. I wonder if you can get an update on that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Grenier. Good to see you again. Unfortunately, I do not have an update for you right now. I can tell you it is with our traffic engineering department. It is currently being looked at and doing warrant on it. I do not have an update, but I will definitely share it when I do.
Great. Recently, and last year, we talked about rights of way in Savinaw that access the lake. I've had meetings with the Savinaw Improvement District and the Savinaw Community Association. And I spoke yesterday to the president of the Savinaw Community Association, who says that they would very much like, who also happens to sit on the Improvement District. So I said to these folks when I met with them, I said, we've already had the discussion with the ministry that they're open to do something, but they're not going to do the work themselves. The ministry is not going to do the work. Somebody here has to do the work. So the Savinaw Community Association has said, we will take the lead on cleaning up, and we'd like to start with one or two of the rights of way. And so I said to them, I would raise that with you. I think that there's another discussion that can be held off this one. But if you're still keen to do that, they're keen to do the work and to maintain the right of way. And I'm thinking somehow between the TNRD ministry and those community associations, we might be able to get some of those rights of way open to Kamloops Lake.
Yeah, so we are working with Savinaw Improvement District through our permitting office they were actually looking to hire a summer student to work within our right-of-way to assist in cleaning up some debris and whatnot. So yes, we are in contact with the Savinaw Improvement District around the cleanup network.
Great, thank you. And then the final one is also in Savinaw. We had that flood situation, disaster situation. I understand that you folks have been out there. Kevin Skrepnik, our emergency manager person, has been out there. The ministry position, if I can take it on the flood, is that we take responsibility for one side of the culvert to the other side of the culvert. And then our responsibility after that is not our responsibility, the ministry. And we have homeowners that are prepared to dedicate rights of way for culverts or ditches, whatever's necessary after the culvert, so that water coming through the culvert, if it happens again, would flow down to Kamloops Lake. And of course, we're hearing about it. We're trying to facilitate that. I have asked them to prepare a plan of where they think the water's going, who the landowners are. Would those landowners all sign off on allowing a culvert or a ditch or something that somebody engineering wise can say, yeah, that will work. And we're working through Mr. Skrapnik on what was the word? Resiliency, I think was the word. So a resiliency plan. And I'm very much hoping that we could work with you to channel the flow that comes through the culvert the next time, and then it channels down to Kamloops Lake without flooding people's homes. So that's a new item on the agenda that I'm hoping we can work together with you on.
Yeah, no, for sure. Happy to work with you. You know, a water drainage law is quite complex. We won't get into it now, but happy to work with you on some ideas out there.
Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you. My area is, I'm part of Lower Nicola, and a couple of years ago, we asked about Aberdeen Road, whether it was going to be paved, and basically they said it'd be paved when Highway 8 is redone. Is there an update on that?
Yes, it is definitely on the books to be resurfaced from the top part there right down to the bottom, and it's going to be in conjunction with a lot of the pavement that's going on 8 out there on the projects. I tried to get that done this year, and the first part of Highway 8 redone up to the first project, and have that as one section, and then have the project do the rest of it when it's finished. But they have got their reasons why they're going to do it all at once, and it'll be done at the end of the project. For the time being, the top part of Aberdeen Road from the gun club turnoff up to where the RSI pit is, where they're getting a lot of that big rock from and stuff. We're gonna be doing some interim work on that just to clean it up a little bit. The project has been putting gravel in there, but that seal coat's broken up pretty bad, and we recognize it. I've got Wireby on the hook to go out above the old Craigmont mine area there, where the center line seems to be broken up pretty bad. They're gonna do some patching in there this spring as well. But it won't be repaved and resurfaced till after the project is got the thing, but it will get done.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear it's still on the books. That's great. So just a comment, it's really interesting in my area and area M&N, we're doing OCPs, official community plans. And it's really interesting to see the comments about roads. The area residents feel that it's a TNRD responsibility, like we can actually fix roads, and it seems to be a very top item that when you go to an OCP about who's gonna, whatever highway or piece of road that needs to be fixed. And we quite happily tell them, I'm sorry, that's not our responsibility. So we do support you though. Anyway, I thought you might like to have that information.
Just one last thing, your weigh in motion that was put in at Nicola Ranch, I don't know if it's working or not working, but looks like we had a pretty successful CBSE blitz at Knutsford the last 3 days. And I sure appreciate whatever work we can do to get the chain on, chain off area as a starting point for Cardew Hill for especially for winter use down the road, because it looks like commercial traffic's going to be staying on 5A, and we need to at least fix up the Cardew Hill portion. We asked for other things, but let's start with one thing, and if we could put some pressure, and we'll do it at our end here. So appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. There's an international road check on right now, so that's why you've seen an increased presence in CVSE, and there's officers from all across the province, and actually some federal government employees as well here. So an annual international check, and the system did go live probably 6 or 7 weeks ago. So it is a nice enforcement tool that we're using out there, and we'll continue to work on the chain up, chain off. It's a good project.
Any other questions from the board? No, thank you very much for coming. It's great to have all this information, and I think this would be actually a good event to hold at least once a year, and you get to hear from the EA directors exactly what's happening in their areas and what the residents are telling us. And like I say, we to inform them that we will work with them on any problems they're having with roads, but we're not responsible. And I appreciate all the hard work you do in keeping our roads actually open and running very well from what I can see. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to thank the staff for setting that meeting up, and it was obviously that highways listened and turned out with all of their managers to answer our questions. And if we didn't have staff that could do that for us, it's very difficult to meet one-on-one with all the different areas that we have in the highways that run through our communities. So thank you very much for doing that. Next on the agenda is, let's see, Minister of Water, Land and Resource Stewardship. Who's there? Online?
Hi there.
We can't hear you.
How about now?
You're sort of breaking up. Not.
Just doing a bit of a test here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can now.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. Thanks for
All right.
patience. So, I was just indicating that we do have staff from Water, Land and Resource Stewardship, but also from Ministry of Agriculture. Will Shaw's with us today. Will, did you want to do some introductions first?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. My name is William Shaw. I'm the Regional Agrologist with the Ministry of Agriculture and Food, and I cover the Thompson-Nicola.
Tyler, would you like to go ahead?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Tyler Anderson, Regional Drought Coordinator with the Thompson-Okanagan region.
And hi, everyone. My name is Nicole Pyatt. I am the section head with the Water Resources team. So Tyler and Will and I, we all work within the Thompson-Okanagan region, essentially. So kind of local staff dealing with more of the local issues. Will and I had the opportunity to come last year as well. Corbin was kind enough to set that up for us to come to talk to you guys about drought a little bit earlier in the season with James Telford, one of our water allocation staff. And this year, while James is away, Tyler has been kind enough to step into that role. We had some content for you guys today, just really related to drought again. So we have some information on conditions, some changes to the drill level setting process, and also just an update on some communication strategies that we have in place. And then also obviously are just available to answer any related questions that you have. Tyler, if you'd like, you're welcome to queue up the presentation there.
Sure thing. Just to confirm, you can see my slides or slide. Yeah, thumbs up. Great. Hi, everyone. Going to be giving you a brief overview of the drought conditions that are currently happening for the 2025 drought season. Also some nice imagery within the TNRD. Hopefully you like it. So starting with the snow water equivalent, and this is the amount of water that's held within our snowpack within our mountains. And if you're unfamiliar with one of these graphics, what they're showing is the percentiles of snow water equivalent historically since 1988. You'll see that this thin gray line here in the middle, that is the median. This black line is our current year, 2025, and this lighter black gray color at the bottom here, that was last year's snowpack, snow water equivalent. So you can see that this year, right now, we are tracking pretty similar to how we were at the same point last year. We were doing quite well at the beginning of the year, but then we got really dry in January, which depleted some of our snowpack. But we haven't fallen to historic low levels yet this year, and we are sitting around the 10th percentile right now. A quick look at some of the systems within the TNRD. You can see this is Barrier River up here. And again, this is similar to the previous graph where the gray line is the median for the historical period, and this one goes back to 1915. The black line is our current year, and this green line is last year's stream flow. So what you'll notice is that we had a early onset for our freshet. You'll see how much earlier it was than the median for this year. And with the lower amounts of snowpack within our region, we aren't anticipating much higher flows going forward. And what an early freshet means and a limited snowpack means is that we could see an earlier onset of our low flows, which could lead into more severe low flows later in the season. Looking at the Coldwater River, which is down on the southern part of TNRD, you'll notice a very similar situation where we had an early onset freshet earlier than the median. And Shovel Nose Mountain, which is one of our automated snow weather stations, is showing 0 snow water equivalent right now. So this is really relying on the higher elevation snowpacks to be providing it with a bit more flow. And then Thompson River near Spence's Bridge, which is over here, you'll see a similar story where we see the early onset freshet for this year compared to the median. And again, really relying on high elevation snowpack leading into increased flows. So just a brief outlook. We cannot accurately predict if drought will occur this year, as much of it depends on our spring and summer rain conditions. And this is kind of similar to last year. Last year, we were worried that we were going to have a lot lower flows, but we were waylaid by precipitation that happened almost every month. So it did help our streams throughout the summer. And that's what we are hoping for this year. It doesn't mean it will happen, but that's what we are hoping for. Some of the scenarios that the River Forecast Center provided us for this year range from most likely to unlikely. And so warm with seasonal rainfall, which would be similar to last year, or a hot and dry, which is also possible. And that would be early onset low flows and extreme record low flows. And that would be similar to the 2023 drought season. And then cool and wet, which they're saying is unlikely at this point, but that would be similar to 2019. So there are some different scenarios that still can occur in relation to our drought, but it seems most likely that we're leaning into a warm with seasonal rainfall event. And now I'll pass it over to Nicole to talk about the changes to the drought level setting procedure for this year.
Thanks, Tyler. If you could just change the next slide, please. So we had a substantial change to the drought level setting process between last year and this year. Really what it involved was trying to separate out measurable conditions, so specific water levels, flows, creek levels, lake levels, groundwater levels, things that we can actually quantitatively measure from some more subjective parameters. So that would be impacts to agriculture, aquatic ecosystems, that sort of thing. And also we're taking out the components related to the forecast. So again, in previous years, we looked at conditions, impacts, and forecasts, and we used that information to create drought levels over polygons in space across BC, and they were on a drought level of 0 being no drought to 5 being the highest level of drought. So this year and moving forward, we have that same the same scale, so we're still 0 to 5, but we are only going to be considering conditions that we're able to measure. The reason for this change is really around trying to standardize the approach for alignment with other drought monitors across North America and other locations in the world. We are still going to be tracking impacts. They're going to be tracked separately. So we have the ability to, in what will be public facing mapping moving forward, say we have information where there was a fish kill or there was a drinking water shortage or other information. So that can also be used for decision making, except it'll just be separate. So it'll be very, very clear in terms of the drought level, what we're talking about. The drought level will be, we have measured this and we have compared it to the record. So at that point in space and that point in time, is that flow normal? Is it much lower or is it much higher without some of those other subjective or inferred parameters? So previously, in terms of what the regional staff, so Will, Tyler, James, myself, what we would do in terms of actions, it's informed by the drought level in terms of we would say, oh, we're at drought level 5. That is a high level of concern. But in terms of actual actions, so that might be, asking for voluntary reductions from water users, talking to people about meeting their storage release requirements, going out to help fish salvage or decrease fish migration barriers or any of the other kind of drought related activities that we potentially would undertake. That was all based on the actual impacts. So what we were seeing, where the challenges were, what the actual issues were, it wasn't based on the drought level. So that is in previous years and that is moving forward. So if we found ourselves in a situation where we were seeing the same impacts in 2024 and the same impacts in 2025, we would have the same type of response. So again, we have regulatory mechanisms under the Water Sustainability Act and other legislation, and we have non-regulatory actions that we can undertake. A lot of pieces are related to communication or direct on-the-ground action. None of those pieces are tied to drought level. So the one piece that we will have to deal with moving forward, though, is around communication of the drought level. So acknowledging that if we had a drought level at a certain flow at a certain time last year, it might not be the same drought level at the same flow at the same time in the same point in space. So there's a bit of a communication piece related to that, but what we will have on the other side after people get used to the new system is something that is very comparable to what other drought monitors are doing and has been kind of related to something similar to the Richter scale. The Richter scale measures a quantifiable amount of shaking in the ground. It doesn't reflect the impacts, the number of buildings that have been damaged or losses to human life, that sort of thing. So it's the directly measurable components that will be leading the drought level setting this year. The drought level setting, it is initiated based on when systems are through freshet, as Tyler had talked about before. So it started a bit on the West Coast and on the Northeast right now, but we would anticipate that some of the polygons within the Thompson-Okanagan will start having drought level setting as early as this next week coming up. Next slide, please, Tyler. So just some further information that, again, we're retaining that 0 to 5 scale. And the intent of that, again, is the very measurable, like how actually dry is that relative to the historical record on that site. So it will allow us to better understand the natural patterns of that hydrology related piece and then the impact. So again, water users, agriculture, aquatic ecosystems related impacts will be still absolutely considered, but considered separately and dealt with separately. Next slide, please. So there are a number of different kind of communication strategies and pathways and a bunch of different groups in government that really work on communication related to drought. The kind of guiding document is the BC Drought Water Scarcity Response Plan. This is going to be updated to reflect those new changes and should be available kind of in a couple days within the next week. Really, this document in general outlines the responsibilities of different levels of government, different roles of provincial agencies. It speaks to the 4 different pillars, but focuses in a lot on the response piece. So it talks about kind of how this drought level setting process works and also some of the actions that the different ministries take. And there are some really nice flow charts in there as well about how the different agencies interact and kind of report to each other. Would you please, Tyler? Thank you. So as mentioned, communication is really kind of in the purview of many folks within government. So at kind of the highest levels, at our branch level, we've got this overarching plan that dictates how the ministries are engaging with each other and other groups. At the branch level, there's also some very specific provincial-wide communication work. So branch has already sent out early preparedness letters to, hopefully you have already received one, purveyors, municipalities, other folks. And then in a separate mail out, all license holders with the billing cycle got some information as well. And so that was primarily focused on early preparedness, where to receive information, and some water conservation techniques. Looking at an ability to make tools that are useful for everyone across the province. There's been lots of effort over the last few years on the drought information portal, which is this map that's kind of grayed out in the background here. So that's public facing mapping that has drought level information, but also lots of other information, and will be the portal moving forward how we will be communicating impacts and collecting impact related information as well. We are in the regions are going to be carrying on with our regional technical drought working group meetings. So those were weekly meetings that we had during the drought season so that we could get communications from purveyors, different folks working in different levels of government, DFO, First Nations partners, kind of other folks about conditions and impacts they're seeing on the ground, as well as taking some time to explore some kind of joint action opportunities that we have had. From branch as well, we have River Forecast Center that sends out bulletins when there are extreme conditions and targeted media releases if we get into extreme drought or they respond to media inquiries. So there's information there. And then again, provincially, there's the EMCR hazard preparedness meetings that have taken place in most locations across the province already. And in that, there is some information related to flooding as always, and also drought for the past couple of years. And then back to that regional lens, in addition to just talking with some of these kind of like organizations, high-level partners, those sort of folks, we also have direct communication with select water users. So again, if we have somebody that's using a large percentage of the water within a particular portion of the watershed, we would typically be in regular conversation with them. And we speak to people as the drought season kind of develops over the year. Hopefully, as Tyler mentioned, we'll get some nice opportunistic rain showers that will keep us moving along, but we are in a position where we could have some challenges related to drought. And so again, we look for some opportunities to meet and make sure people have some situational awareness about how things are developing. And so that looks like in some places we have weekly meetings with producers or other interest groups. And then we'll speak more to this, but we have also had some targeted staff that have been able to be out there on the landscape to create some irrigation efficiencies and also be a bit of a communication bridge between government and the public. Next slide, please. So these are the main portals. We'll send this over to Corbin so that you guys can have access to them because they're active links. But the BC Drought Information Portal has lots of information and resources for municipalities and regional districts as well. So I think, you guys are very established. I think you probably are aware of most of them, but your staff will be able to look into that for you. And then the drought preparedness and response information as well is available. That's everything from us. I'll hand it over to Will to provide a bit of an update specific to agriculture, and then we're happy to take any questions that you have.
Thank you, Nicole. Can everybody in the room hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So this for 2025, as Nicole mentioned, there's been some communication plans put together. We have one primarily for concerning the TNRD for the Salmon River area. And we've kind of outlined some activities that we're going to be undertaking both with the Ministry of Agriculture and with our colleagues from WLRS. And so some of these communication deliverables that we're undertaking and working on, we've brought on, so last year we had an ag water use coordinator for the Salmon River watershed. We have brought him back and he'll be working again this year with us. We are also, as Nicole mentioned, looking at having our bi-weekly community calls and kind of depending on how the season goes, potentially weekly as they did last year. We're going to let the producers kind of dictate the schedule on those. We will be sending out, as Nicole mentioned, like WLRS sends out awareness letters. We have our monthly e-bulletin that we are sending out and updating drought information and the snow report information as we have it. And then just continuing to hold in-person meetings for in the Salmon River kind of as and when needed. We put a pretty good effort last year, both the Ministry of Agriculture and WLRS, on getting out, being in front of producers in that watershed and looking to build relationships and just increase the level of communication. So that's kind of for that specific area, as it's one of our sensitive areas within the region. But then from the Ministry of Agriculture perspective, for all producers, this past December, we launched the BC Agri-Weather website. So it's a collection of weather monitoring stations from our ministry and other provincial and federal agencies. And it's all in one spot now for producers to access. And it does have some decision support tools incorporated that are available for public use. So this includes like some of the weather stations that the ministry's funded that are on producer farms, some of the Environment Canada ones, some of the Ministry of Forest and other agencies. We're continuing to push and promote the Environmental Farm Plan and Beneficial Management Practices programs. They're one of the main cost share funding programs that the ministry runs to help with a spectrum of improvements on the farm. But for kind of around this conversation, a lot of it's focused either on riparian work or irrigation upgrades. Last year, the ministry started a BC crop reporter. So it was a weekly agriculture reporting system for producers. It was anonymous. The only required information they were asked to submit weekly was the level of precipitation in the area. But depending on what they were reporting in their cropping system, there was kind of some different questions, and then also time of the year. We're going to be running that again this year. We've tweaked it a little bit where they'll be getting a weekly reminder on Wednesday morning, and then they'll have 24 hours to complete. And it's open to anybody that's either a producer or supports agriculture or yeah. So this information, we're hoping we can increase the number of producers involved, especially for the kind of Thompson-Nicola, North Okanagan. We didn't have a high number of producers reporting last year, but some of this information helps support drought when we're providing information, especially regarding impacts. The ministry is continuing to run their ag water infrastructure program. So again, this is in some cases it's 100% cost shared, but if not, usually around 50% cost shared funding program. We're expecting the producer project stream, which was stream 1, to reopen again this fall. So that'll be available for producers. And then we had a stream 4 that, like, when this program first came out, it wasn't open yet, but we're expecting it to open kind of this summer, fall, and it's geared towards strategic projects for communities. It's going to be expression of interest based, and there may be some prioritization for events or projects coming out of our high risk areas. So for the TNRD, looking at kind of the Salmon River or Nicola. And I think that's kind of everything I had to update on. There are some other smaller projects that the ministry, in conjunction with typically our industry partners, are running within the region. But those are kind of the bigger things that we have moving forward to try and support producers in how they work and deal with potential drought situations. And I think as Nicole mentioned, yeah, happy for any questions on anything from the Minister of Agriculture side.
Thank you for your report. Is there any questions from the Director Houghton?
Thanks, Chair Laird. Thanks, William, Nicole, and Tyler for coming today. I know it was one of my big asks for this year after what we went through the last couple of years to give a synopsis of what you think 25 will look like you folks did last January of 24. And I know when we were at UBCM, I was at a couple of sessions and I complimented the ministers of the day that how we were so happy that you came to us in January of last year, well ahead of the problem cycle, which is usually July, August. So on another note, you had your different river forecasts there, and William, you did mention the Salmon River, and that's what I'm going to target this morning, the Salmon River from Westwold to Falkland area. In a nutshell, compared to where we were in 23, as far as water availability for agriculture, where do you think we're headed in 25? We're only in May now, and they use water up until September. What does the crystal ball say that we're going to be, depending on weather, of course?
Yeah, I'd say that's sitting with WRS a bit more for sure. So as Tyler had mentioned, we have the information that we have less snow than normal and that it's melting earlier. So annually, every single year, we have that low flow period where humans are still needing to use water, but then naturally the snow is melting and kind of move through the system. There's less water available. And unfortunately, that often coincides with migration for some of the larger fish as well, right? That's area that we have conflict in the Salmon River in particular. So we know part of the information, but what we don't know is what rain is coming, right? There's not a good ability for Environment and Climate Change Canada to be able to predict the precipitation. And so that's really what's going to dictate what situation we're in and how quickly or slowly the drought conditions evolve is based on that precipitation.
And just supplement that, Mr. Chair. So I take it you're going to be holding producer meetings throughout the year, one-on-one with the groups in the Westwold Falkland area, just as an update to basically, so we don't have another fiasco like we had in 23. You're going to be having producer orientation meetings?
Yeah, that year definitely had a lot of challenges. And out of that, so 2024 and kind of carrying forward into this year, we had put a lot of energy, as Will mentioned, into the communication. So a lot of public facing sessions, but also setting up this group that's really well known and communicated with regularly of folks that were basically nominated by a bunch of the larger water users, right? So those were those producer meetings that we've been having. We talked with them over the winter and discussed what frequency they would want to meet with us. And now that we're moving back into the drought season, as Will mentioned, we can meet with whatever frequency they want to meet. We were meeting every 2 weeks during the drought season last year. And then when the conditions got a bit tighter, we moved to every week. But that's a direct conduit for all of those folks to be able to ask us questions in both ministries and for us to be able to relay information to them. And that's in addition of emails related to the meeting that Will and others send out, plus the bulletins, plus all the other public facing information through the portal.
Thank you very much for that.
Oh, I was just going to add, we were out last Thursday. So Ministry of Agriculture and the Shrimp Fisheries Commission, one of the requests from the producers in the Salmon River had been to have a meeting with SFC. So there was 3 members from SFC that were out, provided some information on the work that they do, some of the hydrometric monitoring that they do in the watershed, and then also some of the thermal imaging work that they're planning to undertake along the Salmon River. Unfortunately, with the federal election, DFO was not able to be present. But yeah, again, we're going to continue to work and like Nicole said, we'll be having meetings out there at frequencies that make sense to not be taking up too much of the producer's time, but also trying to relay information and be getting people of interest in front of them that they're interested in. And I think, yeah.
Yeah, those meetings have led to a lot of good pieces, not to go too far into the details, but I mean, as you can imagine, people in general with some of the challenges that had come up in 2023 were even concerned about people walking in the creek bed behind their house, right? They wanted to know who that was. And jointly, all of the partners that we are involved in have been voluntarily providing information that Will has been coordinating and kind of sending out to everyone, right? So this is something that is not done, right? Like we can't be responsible for everyone that's out there, but honestly, it's a huge amount of effort in terms of trying to coordinate academics and others that Will's undertaken to make sure people know who's out there, what's happening. People have questions, making sure they're linked through to the right contacts. It was a really terrible communication situation in 2023, and now it's almost one of the best that we have in terms of being able to get information across. Not that that's solved all the problems, but just people know what the problems are now.
Any other director? Director Hull?
Just want to thank you for that. And you and I can't predict where the water is or how much there is, but we can predict the way we communicate. And I give you folks, all of you, full credit from where we're at today compared to 23. Thank you.
Thanks very much for your support as well, Director Houghton, and we'd be super happy to have another online conversation or offline conversation with you about this as well, if you want some more specific information. Yeah, thanks.
Director Husso.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you very much for the presentation. Just for more of my own knowledge of who does what, would your ministry be involved in like long-term mitigation planning? Director Thorpe and we attended a Nicola Watershed Council meeting the other month. And one of the major things that I learned that they're working on is like planning for reservoir construction. Is that something that your ministry or what kind of involvement would your ministry be at with that sort of project planning? Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thanks for asking. So the Nicola Water Governance Partnership, that is an agreement between the 5 chiefs in the Nicola regions and what at the time was the Ministry of Forest, because that's where all the WRS staff that worked in water were located. And subsequently, that responsibility has come across with us. So that is the 5 chiefs and the WRS staff that now create that core council. And that is similar to on the coast, they have a water sustainability plan. It's kind of a separate entity where it has its own funding. It has a core council and then it has a technical council underneath. And they have secure funding to move forward on projects, right? So they're in a bit of a unique situation. It's almost like the G2G discussion has provided some extra support in that area. And they have, as you mentioned, that traditional storage project is great. That was a really good product that came out of there. And that was identifying locations where traditional storage could be located. So not necessarily making it or creating any other additional funding opportunities, but just highlighting these places where it potentially could move forward. So we don't have funding in all places that's similar to the NWGP. But what we did do in the Salmon River, as we were talking about that, for example, is we did an internal review with staff. So not to the level that was done through that contractor, because that was a lot of time and effort put into that. But we did do a review, and there are some conversations underway about potential opportunities for storage. The ideal locations within the Salmon River would be potentially Boline Lake or augmenting some existing storage on Spa Lake. And really what we're looking at is where or how can we get the water where we need it, when we need it. So when there's that conflict, right? And really what we're talking about is kind of Silver Creek to Falkland. That's the area where there's that tight conflict between the aquatic species and the human use. So we're exploring opportunities. Funding is a challenge, but potentially there's an opportunity to access or leverage the funding that Will was talking about through that Stream 4. And we also have so in the Salmon River, we have set up something called Salmon River Collaborative Meetings to essentially make sure folks at a technical level know what the heck's happening. So that includes BC Cattlemen's Association, DFO, a whole lot of WRS staff, both at branch and in region, Shishwemic Fisheries Commission, ONA, a number of the individual bands participate in those calls. So as many folks as we can get basically having overlapping interest in the Salmon River. And that is this open forum for people just to say, here are the things we're doing, here are the things we care about. Now everyone else knows, and it allows us to kind of, not in an obligatory way, but to discuss how we can make decisions that are kind of useful for everyone. So an example of that would be someone has hydrometric funding. Can we talk about where that would maybe be best placed to support everyone's projects or that sort of work? So that meeting, which again led out of the challenges in 2023, that's a forum where people can connect to hopefully explore that traditional storage a bit further. We also are looking at other opportunities in the Salmon River watershed to basically increase that drought resiliency. So we're working on a beaver dam analog project, which you might have also heard about in Nicola, because we're doing some great work there as well. So that potentially would add some increased water holding capacity in the landscape to kind of buffer out those drought effects. So we're exploring opportunities kind of across those stakeholder groups of what we can do with all of our limited time and money. So
And
if you guys would like to come out and, I don't know, put some posts in the ground and meet all the stakeholders, you are most welcome.
Thank you. Is there any other questions from the directors?
I'll just add to that. One of the projects so Nicole mentioned, like the ministry through both the beneficial management practices program and then this ag water infrastructure program does have some funding for traditional storage. But the ministry over the last year, in conjunction with BC Cattlemen's, so the BC Cattlemen's developed a water resiliency tool. It was originally developed for kind of rangeland and crown grazing in the Caribou and the Kootenays. And then they've taken the model that was developed out of that, and we've been piloting it in the Boline and 6 Mile Creek area, and looking at flow accumulation. So looking at, as Nicole said, kind of this BDA mindset where it's not a traditional storage, but maybe a bit more of a way to recreate some of the wetland or wet areas that used to be there. So that started last summer. The contractor who's been doing it, I was out with 2 of his field staff on Tuesday. We were up in the Boline area because they're doing their freshet sampling right now. So it's not necessarily the traditional storage, thinking of a dam or a dugout, but just looking at ways to increase resiliency and some of the water holding within the watershed.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board? Thanks very much for your presentation. Hopefully we'll not have the same drought conditions as we did in 2023. And it sounds like we're well prepared to start moving ahead and being ahead of the game instead of dealing with issues as they arise. Thank you.
Thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Okay. Next on our agenda is the report for Cooperative Community Wildfire Response Program update. So I think, Jamie, are you doing that one?
I will introduce Janice Winger, who many of you know. She's our fire training coordinator, works in our Fire Protection Services Department. So she's leading up this program and has been working directly with all the community groups who have applied for this funding. So I know this board is, this committee specifically is very aware of this program. So I asked her to just give us an update on where things are at this spring. I'll turn it over to Janice.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to try and keep this brief. I'm supposed to keep this to 5 minutes, but I always seem to go over. So I'll go through the background a little bit quickly. because a lot of you probably already know this. So I'm just going to go over the overview, where we're at, the funding, training, PPE, and the current status. So this program is funded by the province, and it's been put together this year for regional districts to apply for the funding for the Community Emergency Response Organization, so CEROs, we call them CCWR or CEROs, so I'll refer to both. The funding is specifically for the training and purchase of the PPE only, and this is to work with wildfire, work under the deployment of wildfire. So it's just the training and PPE. And so the TNRD will apply for the funding for the cost of the training and PPE directly. So all the money comes to us and we pay for the training and PPE. So no money goes to the groups, which it says at the bottom. And each group was eligible up to a maximum of 10,000. And we had $100,000. So essentially 10 groups if they all applied for $10,000. Oh, this is a slow transition. So we had 20 groups apply for the funding in total. 10 and a half groups have been or will be submitted to UBCM for funding. I think our grants coordinator is gotten through over half of them to send to UBCM. 5 groups were not eligible under the requirements and 4 and a half have been sent to BCWS for further funding. That we've requested because we were oversubscribed within about a week of the application process going out. So it went really quickly. A lot of people were very excited about this. We've had some trickling in. We've had a talk with BC Wildfire to request further funding because we know a lot of regional districts didn't particularly partake in this project. They can't promise us any more money, but what I have been talking to them about is them possibly funding it directly with the groups. They're not going to promise it, but they're going to maybe provide the training and PPE for the groups that have been oversubscribed. It's still in the works. I don't have a guarantee on that, but we're really hoping that's going to be the case because we didn't want to say no to these groups, especially some that maybe have gone through this program with Fraser Basin last year. So hopefully I'll have an update on that shortly. Actually, as we were here, I noticed that BC Wildfire had called me to update me about it. So hopefully that's good news. So the requirements for the funding, so the ones that weren't eligible, maybe some of them were found, so they can't operate within a recognized structural fire protection area. They have to have an accountable leadership. They need to be a registered nonprofit society or association. And then, of course, there's all the other, they have to demonstrate a willingness to participate. So this is working not on their own. This training and PPE is not for them to do initial attack, for them to do this on their own. That's voluntary. This is provided to work with BC Wildfire directly under their jurisdiction. So the training courses that they're going through is the S100 basic fire suppression and the safety, the S100A, which is the annual refresher. So once you've done the S100 and S185, initially it's a 2-day course. So 185 is fire entrapment, avoidance, and safety, general knowledge of obviously wildfire entrapment. So it's a 1-day theory is S185, S100 is the basic fire suppression that's taught out in the field. So after that, they can go through an annual refresher, ICS 100A. And what we're doing this year is doing a 1-day. So it's going to be a half day to a reminder of the theory of the fire endangerment. And then back in the field, half day, just getting your hands on the pumps again and knowing how everything works. So we just thought this was a good way to just remind everybody, this is not something they use every day. So it's a good, so we've got 1-day training happening for that. The ICS 100, we're fortunate that Kevin Skrepnik here is an instructor for ICS. So we're able to deliver the ICS 100 in-house, which has been fantastic. So we can, it's a self-study. So I send the booklets under Kevin's direction and they can study it. They'll sign up for the course and then I can send them a link to the exam, or they can take the exam in person. But sending the link has been very beneficial for these groups because they can do it at their own pace, at their own time. And then the results get sent directly back to Kevin and I. And then we can produce a certificate for them. So that's been going really well with the groups. PPE is, you know, hard hat, vest, gloves, safety eyewear, footwear, and flame-resistant clothing. So this year it had to meet the NFPA standards. So we're providing coveralls, which are not cheap. So that's been a big expense in this whole program. Oh, did I have two of these? This is just some pictures of the Venables group last year that went through the S100 training with our trainer. This is his field out in Knutsford. So the group went down and did their training there. Some more, so we just, they teach you to dig guards, you know, you work the hoses, and then there's just some of the tools, and that's the instructor there. Terry Doy with, actually Tobiano, was one of our groups that, went into it. So current status, we have 74 members that will require the S100, S185 training. We have 132 members that will require the S100A annual refresher. 112 members will require the ICS 100 training. The training has mostly all been scheduled for these groups. They're starting the next group. One group has already gone through, and the next group is coming up this weekend. They're going to be doing their annual refresher, and then every weekend after that, we've got everybody kind of slotted in. There's a couple groups that need to confirm. ICS is ongoing. So yeah, so I think the last training date we have is June 28th to 29th. Which was kind of my goal to have this wrapped up by June, the training at least. There's going to be some people that can't make all the training. They'll keep, once there's training offered, I'll keep letting them know, hey, there's this group going in July. Our instructor has some that he's doing, and he's saying where there's availability, we can fill the classes, which is awesome. So yeah, so once that's all done, then I send the records. Once I have all the records, I send it to BC Wildfire. Then they set up an appointment with the groups to onboard them. So then we just kind of pass them over to Wildfire. So hoping things are going to go well. So far, so good. We've got one that's already gone through. Like I said, it's been passed over to BC Wildfire. BC Wildfire is in the process of setting up a meeting. They told me that they're going to do, try and get as many groups as they can. So they've got a meeting at the end of May for anybody that's ready to be onboarded. They'll do the onboarding meeting and then they sign up with them. So that's it. Any questions?
Any questions from the board? Go ahead, Joe.
So my question is, how is our region for these people that we've got that have got involved? Do we have gaps, or is it pretty much equal across the board?
That's a good question. They're kind of all over. I've got, I just kind of did a quick rundown. So I've got area L, I, O, P, another P, another O, I, J, J, I, P, P, and L.
Thank you.
And then there was a couple others, yeah. Yeah.
Director Grenier?
Thank you, Chair, and thanks for the presentation. So we have these groups, some that have been approved. Is there a chart or anything that we can see who's been approved and who is still at the gate?
Yeah, I do have that. I'm allowed to share that.
And specifically, I had been approached by one of the groups very recently. I copied, in fact, Mr. Vieira was copied on his request, but so there's two area J groups that I'm aware of, a Lac Lejeune group and a Tranquille group. Are they in process, approved, denied?
Am I privy to?
Yeah, we can share that.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, the 10 groups that have been, so I'll just provide some background. So when we first rolled out this program, we advertised that because it's limited funding, it was going to be first come, first serve. And so all the eligible groups who applied first that were deemed to be eligible were processed, and then the ones who came in later are on the wait list. So they've all been notified directly, whether they've been processed as in we've submit the application, or they're on the wait list, or they're not eligible. Janice has spoken with all of them directly, but you can go ahead and share that.
Yeah, so Lac Lejeune is approved. I'm just waiting for them to get back to me on their training dates, what would work for them. And Tranquille didn't make it on the first come, first serve basis, but I have sent their application on to BC Wildfire. So I'm hoping to get an update on that, whether, yeah, they said they can't up the amount of money we get through UBCM, but they are looking at options to maybe like, yeah, get them trained and get their PPE directly. So hopefully I'll have an update on that one. Yeah.
Director Smith?
Thank you, Chair. I was just wondering about Kelly Lake in Area E.
Kelly Lake is in there. They did make it. Actually, I think they were the second one on the list. They have training dates of May 31st and June 1st for their S100, S185, and June 14th for their S100A refresher. I think they had 16 in each group. They had quite a large group. So 16 was going for the S100, S185, and 16 for the refresher.
So did they get the full 10,000?
Yeah. And a lot of these groups, yeah, they were actually over, like, I think Kelly Lake might have been at 30,000 for the full amount. And like I said, the coveralls are about $465 each. So what we've been kind of doing with the groups, training is number one. We want to make sure that their training is in there, so that's covered. And what I think it was Kelly Lake. What they're going to do is share the coveralls because they're so expensive, and really they're for deployment with BC wildfires. So how many people are you going to have deployed? Probably maybe 5 to 10 possibly. So they thought, let's just have a generic place to keep them and then get generic sizes. And then that way you can get more people through. For now, that was kind of a good option that we worked through. So I had to kind of work with all the groups to make it fit within the 10,000. Some were under, which is why we got half of one of them, because they didn't quite hit the 10,000. They might have been 6,000. I think it was about 6,000 was one of the groups. So the last group was maybe funded by 4,000. So I've had to work with them. What can you go without? You know, some of it was boots because the boots were about 200. A lot of people just have their own boots. Then they can get more coveralls. So we just kind of had to be a little bit creative in some of them. But yeah, Kelly Lake is definitely in there. Yeah.
Director Houghton?
This quick question, it doesn't pertain actually to this scenario, but can you explain the program School District 73, Scott, with the kids in the BC wildfire training? Because I know some kids from Knutsford partook in. I thought that was pretty neat. You get children in the school system to be wildfire firefighters. I think that's a good part of our curriculum.
Okay. I don't know about that. Yeah, no.
Director Sal?
Thank you, Chair. Just bringing back some input or opinions from other regional districts. That UBCM conference for EA directors, we noted that there were other regional districts who are not supportive of this program by the province. So I just kind of wanted to share that, and perhaps if anybody disagrees, I think I speak for TNRD EAs that we are supportive of this program. So in case you guys are wondering.
No, that's good to know. And I had that feeling because I know everybody seemed to want to go put this through. And I have to say that the communities that I have worked with are so grateful for that. They're just really been wonderful to work with. It's been great getting to know some of these communities. And they're just super grateful to you for allowing them to be able to, for us to help them, I think, because I think that's a big thing. It's new to a lot of them and not knowing how to put the pieces together. And Fraser Basin had this project last year. And I think us having that knowledge of how to get the training done and having Kevin here as an ICS instructor was really helpful, because that was, I think, a bit of a downfall, is that they didn't know, a lot of people didn't complete the ICS 100. And I think BC Wildfire told me that out of 500 people that were under this pilot project, only 96 actually completed all the requirements. So, you know, with Venables, I think we did it within a week and a half. We had them fully trained and ready for wildfires. So they were like, oh, well, this is how it's done. So, you know, I think it's been a wonderful thing, and I think it's a win-win for the TNRD, really. Yeah.
Director Thorpe?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, Venables is awesome, aren't they?
They're great.
So I think you said you might have had 2 or 3 for Area I. I'm assuming you've got Venables. I think you've got Thompson River Estates.
Yep.
Is there a third one there?
Oh, you know what? I think I put Kelly Lake as under I, but it's,
No, that's GEMS.
oh, Jim, sorry.
Okay,
Yeah.
because I did have one group that didn't get their nonprofit status until after the deadline. And I don't know if they reached out to you or not. They were going to see if maybe there was some wiggle room somehow, because they got it, I think, about the 16th or 17th, and the cutoff was the 15th.
What was the name of the group?
would have been the West Side group. It would have been a Lytton West Side group.
No, I didn't get one from West.
Okay, because it would have been Nakaya Coughlin, I think, that would have been the contact.
I didn't receive one from them. I feel like, I don't know if it was you that asked me that before, but I feel like that name came up, but I didn't. No,
No,
maybe
not
it's-
me. Maybe he
okay.
did reach out.
No, I,
What we can do is we can send a list of
yeah.
all the status of all the applications,
Okay.
just for awareness for this group, and then you guys can connect with.
Thank you
Janice
so
for
much.
specific
Yeah, I didn't get
questions.
an application.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Any other questions from the board? Great, thanks for the update. Okay, now we're gonna do our roundtable, and we're gonna start off with Director Sal.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just sharing some thoughts about, uh, electoral areas and advocacy, and speaking up for our residents in areas that really kind of concern, our unincorporated communities. And as the province, it's talking about fast tracking a lot of these resource extraction projects from, and also green energy, solar farms to, wind farms to solar projects. Sometimes I think I've heard comments from other directors about the wind farms where there was a complete lack of consultation at all of electoral areas. If they put up a wind farm in a municipality, I'm pretty sure they would be, involved in discussion. So that's something that I, obviously kept Scott and Corbin in the loop, at any opportunities. And they have done a phenomenal job for Area A. And also like to, thank Chair Roden recently to share her advice, because every time I go to Silga and these conferences, I come back with inspirations and more stuff to follow up on. And one of them was taxation in lieu of, payment in lieu of taxes. And that was something that I recently only learned about, and Chair Roden had some knowledge in that and shared that with me. But that's something that I would like to, constantly keep in the mind of staff. If you catch wind of, developments, to make us be aware and also see what we can do to get involved. So that's just my comments for this. Thank you.
Next is Director Onslow.
Thank you, Chair. I guess just a few things that I have going on in Area B. One of them is concern for the health of Lake Eleanor in Blue River, and I'm curious if staff would be able to just point me in the right direction of which level of the provincial government that we could talk to, or different organizations that I could reach out to start the process of seeing and determining the health of that lake. So I would appreciate that, because I'm not sure where to start. Another thing that we have that is just constantly ongoing, again, is the tiny house warriors and the lack of being able to remove that encampment from TNRD Area B. And there's upcoming projects that are potentially going to be protested within the North Thompson Valley. And I just really would like more action somehow. I know that our advocacy group, and I know that Chair Roden and CAO Hildebrand, as well as Mr. Kelly, have gone and spoken to different ministers, but it is front and foremost, the law is not being upheld, and the citizens in Blue River are getting really tired of it. So I don't know what else we can do. I know I'm a broken record, and I have been, and Steve Quinn was a broken record. They've been there for 6.5 or 7 years. Like, enough is enough. So I don't know what to do or how to say it, but it is paramount that we somehow get the government to uphold their laws. Okay. Any ideas on that would be great. And then the Welcome to Blue River sign has been down for probably 5 years, 4 years, 5 years. I know we just had the Ministry of Transportation in here, but I'd like to see some movement on that so that we can actually have our community sign. I know we're struggling with getting the TNRD signs, but it just feels that that has completely stopped. I'm sure it hasn't, but somehow can we push that forward to get that sign replaced? And the Avola information sign got knocked over probably by the snowplow contractors, maybe the wind. Anyway, I would like to know if that is going to be replaced or put back up. And who's responsible for that? Is that a TNRD responsibility or is that an Emil Anderson and Ministry of Transportation responsibility? Thank you.
Jamie, will you make any comments?
Yeah, I could address some of those. I guess moving backwards through that list, the entrance sign, I know MOT staff mentioned that. And I'll be the first to acknowledge this project has been delayed way further than we ever envisioned. What Director Alonso said is correct. It is moving, but just has been very slowly. We've been held up in the permitting process with MOT. So the good news is we finally have one of the challenges was, without getting into too much detail, one of the challenges was that there was a different person in every different region, as you saw with how many people were standing here that needed, and they seemed to interpret their own rules differently. We feel like we're getting finally some clarity on what that needs to be, what being a consistent way to apply for the permit. And then as soon as that permit goes through, we can actually start going through the construction process. The specific area B, the Blue River and Avola entrance signs are wrapped up in that same project, getting all those permits at once. The Avola information sign, I'm familiar with the sign. I'm quite certain it was not ever a TNRD sign, but we could look into that one. I don't know the answer to that. I'll take that one offline. The Eleanor Lake water quality, I'll just make a couple comments and we could have a further discussion offline. That is a common thing that we hear, and there's no easy answer. I mean, ultimately, the Ministry of Environment is responsible for water quality in the province. But unless came up in Green Lake and it's come up in Nicola Lake. To be blunt, the resources devoted at water quality and water monitoring in the province is extremely limited. And that's why has been local governments have themselves invested in their own water quality monitoring programs and maintenance programs like the Shuswap Lake Watershed Council, for example. So that's a loaded question, but the short answer is water quality is Ministry of Environment's responsibility. Tiny House Warriors, I don't have any update on that one. I think you knew that, but fair comments, yeah. Yeah, we're monitoring it as well.
Next on the list is Director Smith.
Thank you, Chair. I've just got a couple of issues. As you all saw on the MOT slide, the speed reduction for 70 Mile House is going to happen. She did caution me in not going too crazy with the public because the engineering department hasn't signed, but she anticipates that signing to be within the next week. So I'm going to kind of I've had several people from the media and everywhere asking for an update. So I'm just not sure how I'll handle that next week, but we'll deal with that. In the meantime, I'd like to personally thank the advocacy team from the TNRD for taking that issue directly to the minister, because I think that had the final push that was needed. As I mentioned, it's been over 3 years in the making. Started with my predecessor, and I'm not sure how in-depth that was at the time, but I provided, I thought, an argument that couldn't be turned down, and so it looks like we were successful on that. So from an advocacy standpoint, I feel very vindicated, and I feel that that process does work. And I think you just got to stay the course and kind of be patient about it. And everybody, has different comments about how long government takes to get something done. And we all know that, but I think if you're strong enough feeling and if you're personally embedded in it, that you can make it happen, and especially with support from the TNRD. So for that, I'm very thankful, and I think it's going to be a safer situation on Highway 97. We were going for 80 kilometers an hour and we got 90, which is no big deal. I've already spoken to the RCMP and they're totally happy with it. They feel that it's enforceable, and just the fact that there's a reduction as you're entering and leaving the community is what we wanted, to alert the drivers that they are coming into a community that has, you know, a major intersection and businesses and on-off traffic and that sort of thing. So at the end of the day, I think it's a win for everyone, and I'm hoping that the residents will be pleased with it. Secondly, I guess the other thing I wanted to mention was at the Silga, when we had the roundtable directors meeting that Tricia orchestrated, I was interested in the comments from almost all of the directors actually about identity and about what our role is in the community. And there definitely seems to be a disconnect in my view. And I don't know whether it's the way the directors are communicating with the residents or what their vision of the position actually is. So I'd like to see collectively if we can come up with some sort of I know that there's a policy and I know that there is information in our bylaws and that of what we are capable of and what lanes we need to stay in. But I think, you know, just I'm sure if you asked several residents, they would all have a different view of what our job is or what our position is. And I've used the saying that I'm like a rural counselor. Like I'm the same as a counselor in a municipality, but I'm rural. So I have a vote as to what happens in my area and what happens in everybody's area, actually. But, you know, I somehow I kind of think it's being lost about the importance of us meeting here every month in whatever committee we're in and whatever boardroom we're in. But I think it's important that the residents know that we're not just here to hand out money, or we're not just here to try and see if we can get your road fixed for you, that we're making governmental decisions every month. That I think a lot of residents just think that that's the fluff part of it. But I feel that that is part of our identity, and I think we should be promoting that more. Thank you.
Next on the list is Director Thorpe.
Well, I think we're on a bit of a theme here. I wanted to talk about the roundtable discussion at Silga too. And there seems to be a lack of awareness of what an EA director is. And it seems to come even from our municipal counterparts. That came out loud and clear in the roundtable discussion. And for example, there was an interview done about Silga, and the municipal director talked about the municipalities. The EAs were not even mentioned, and yet we're very much a part of local government. And I don't think it's deliberate, but I just think it gets forgotten somewhere. So I think there's a lot of frustration in how do we educate and advocate for our residents. 40% of the population in BC lives outside the Lower Mainland. Of that population, 1 in 4 people do not live in a municipality. So it seems to me that a quarter of our residents are being underrepresented, and we need to figure out how we can, represent them better, because we are the voice that they have. A question I also have is, what is this legislation around resources and development within an electoral area? How do we ensure resources and development is for that electoral area residents' benefit and it's not potentially annexed by a nearby municipality? How do we deal with that? I don't know what the answer is, but I'm kind of curious as to what legislation things say. In my area right now, we have a big issue with ER closures. It's not just Merritt, it's Lillooet is really bad. We've had 26 closures so far this year. 8 have been in May alone. You don't know if that if the ER is going to be open or closed. One day it's open, the next day it's closed. And it is a serious health concern for the people there. I think the last thing I wanted to talk about was small water systems. When we were at the Silga Roundtable, it turns out that there was a draft done from UBCM in 2013 about small water systems. I referred it to all of you and all the EAs within Silga, and I've sent it to staff, so maybe there's something we can use from there. Anyway, that was it.
You. Next on the list is Director Grenier.
Thank you, Chair. I guess this is in no particular order. I had raised at the beginning of the meeting if any update on the City of Kamloops planning participation. And I just simply note that we have, our budget process begins in the fall. I think August 31st was the date that was in the legislation about what happens on that. And I'm just wondering, I know that there was I think a committee struck between TNRD staff and City of Kamloops staff. So is there any update for us on that?
Yeah, through Chair Laird to Director Grenier, that just happened here within the last couple of weeks. Staff sat down, Alex and Carla sat down with their counterparts at the City of Kamloops and negotiated what they felt was a reasonable idea or proposal. That proposal will now go back to City of Kamloops Council for their input, because right now it's at staff level. And then once it kind of goes through that process, it'll come back to the TNRD for potential discussion, debate, and adoption. So it's in process and well on its way to ensure that we kind of meet the timelines, because the extension that the board asked us to do has been signed and it's for this year. And we want to have this in place then for the coming year and years going forward.
Sorry, I guess the second thing, wanted to report to our committee that our advocacy people, Corbin, sent out a letter to the Canadian Energy Regulator. So thank you for that. This was dealing with the Enbridge looping program, which I now understand is just an expansion of the pipeline. But it runs through 4 of our TNRD areas. So we notified the regulator, who asked for input by last Friday. Any comments about this? We had been asked by Enbridge to support the program. So we put in specifically 4 projects in the area that might be considered by the Enbridge and by perhaps the regulator as community programs that would be beneficial in conjunction with the approval of the pipeline. I did note that the map that we did send to the regulator didn't have the pipeline on the map. And so I'm wondering if we could possibly send an updated map that shows both the area and the pipeline, because I don't think the regulator is going to have a clue where it is. And that's following up with your comment, Director Onslow, at Silga, where you said so often it's beneficial to put in a map with the area because they don't know what a director is, let alone what a TNRD regional district is. So if you could take a look at that, and if it's worthwhile, send in an updated map. There is a New Gold committee that Director Houghton and I sit on, and New Gold is connecting with the community, and there is they have sent this to local area folks, and they went to Canada Post to get postal codes for the area, and they couldn't get much help. Or they couldn't get accurate information from Canada Post about the postal codes, who they would have to send this to. So they've done a bit of a hit and miss. I know some area people have got it. I brought this so Director Houghton could see it, because I don't know if he's got it. I did talk to CEO Hildebrand about this, and I'm it's not just New Gold that's got a problem with Canada Post and postal code. So I'm just wondering if there's something we can do to assist our constituents, commercial and residential, with regard to postal codes, and whether we can get that into our database so that if this request comes along again, we can quickly respond.
Through the chair, I believe that was the discussion we had, and I think we connected them with our GIS team and directly with the consultant that was working on this program, and was able to provide them the data that needed much more efficiently and effective than going to each director or going to Canada Post. We were able to kind of provide them the information that's within our regional district.
Wonderful, thank you. I wonder if there's an update on the grant funding for the Savannah water treatment wish list.
I assume that referring to kind of the hinting of the grant we are anticipating being announced. We still have not heard any announcement that there is a grant intake. However, there is a workshop that Austin and myself will be attending in Kelowna next week or week after next. Hoping for more information or at least more insight into what may be coming down the pipe, but no new announcements.
And I guess another situation that I think is happening across our region, we have a unique situation in our area. We have our emergency route planning, and we have a road that starts off as a ministry road, turns into a Forest Service road, then turns into another kind of description road, less than Forest Service road. And it goes from Pasca Lake to Dominic Lake, and they're deactivating the road. Well, the road is the road that we have in our inventory as an emergency alternative road. But what's more, the people that reside along this changing road are saying, boy, this road's in pretty rough condition. And they're looking, of course, to directors and everybody to say, can you cause this to be fixed up? Ministry of Transportation doesn't have a responsibility because it's not a ministry road. Forestry says, no, we have certain conditions, but we're not going to do it. And then it turns into this other thing, which I can't remember what the acronym is, but it's less than that. And now it's being carved up, and no notice to anybody that the road's being decommissioned. So can you imagine coming home one night and so I know that Mr. Skrapnik and Mr. Vieira are well aware of this, but this seems to be something happening without any kind of notice or input. And I think we better get on top of that as a group, because it's happening in this particular case, but I'm sure it's going to show up somewhere else. I don't know if you have a comment on it, Mr. Vieira, but is there anything we could possibly do or escalate?
Oh, what's my comment? Yes, I agree. That's a problem and a challenge, and we have had a number of staff level discussions on this issue. Ultimately, I guess to say what you said in a different way, the situation is that non-Forest Service roads, when they're under the ownership and control of the forest licensee, then the forest licensee is responsible for that road, and it's their full discretion whether or not to keep it open or to close it. But in reality, we know that people have come to use these roads as regular routes, and we've even identified an evacuation routes. So yeah, my comment is there's no easy answer, because the forest licensee at their own expense would be maintaining and keeping these roads open. Whereas if they don't need them and they're under an obligation to protect the forest and the ecosystem from the impacts of the road, so they would deactivate them if they don't need them. Yeah, there's I guess the easy solution would be if the province wants to take on these roads as Forest Service roads and take that responsibility away from the licensee. But in the meetings we've had with the staff at the province, is they're going the opposite direction. The province is trying to reduce the number of Forest Service roads in their inventory, not increase them. So that's the conundrum. I don't have a solution, but just to add to your comments, that's the scenario that is taking place across the.
So just following up on that, trying to find a constructive solution. I'm wondering if there would be some kind of a registry of deactivations that before they deactivate, that there might be a consultation process with TNRD and other regional districts, so that there was sort of a checkoff that says, is this important to you? Otherwise, we're deactivating this on a certain date, as opposed to just going in and deactivating.
Okay, it's not here. Looking behind me to see if anyone's in there. I don't know if that's, it's something that we've requested. We haven't really got a clear answer on it because back to the forest licensee, from their perspective, they're not required to do it. So it would be something that the province would have to require them to do. But I guess I can confirm with this committee that they, being the province staff, provincial staff, has heard loud and clear that this is an issue, that we've, in our emergency planning process, have identified these routes as an emergency routes, and then they get closed and we don't get notified. So no answer, but that is something that we've been asking for, is better communication.
Thanks. Much appreciated if you could keep us up to speed on whether we can do something about that.
Can I just make a comment on the road closures? I am dealing with the Glimpse Lake area, and I had an email from they were closing Peter Hope Road, which is their only other egress for fires. And I see just in our announcements came out that TNRD is busy putting a map together to share with the public on egress and emergency map. I don't know how soon that is coming out, but I think that's very important. And in this case, BC Forest didn't know that the road was being decommissioned. The only group that knew it was being decommissioned was the BC Lumber Sales. That doesn't talk to anybody. Nobody, when they phoned to the forestry, BC Forest in our community, they knew nothing about the decommission, and they finally found out that it was BC Lumber Sales that was asking it to be decommissioned. And that was one of the meetings when I had the OCP. They were really concerned the fact that they're losing the only other egress in and out of their community. And I think we have to be very aggressive on protecting our communities for wildfires. And I don't know how we do that. I think the map will probably help, especially if we get community input into their area, because they know the roads that they can travel on for another escape route. So I think we have to be quite diligent in making sure that we don't have roads shut down because of nobody seems to know what's going on. Even I don't know. Hopefully, we can find a way of addressing that.
One more issue, Chair, for my area, and then I'm finished. Ministry of Mines, they have their process, and I know that. I don't think our planning folks are here, so I don't know that it makes any sense to talk about it. Their Ministry of Mines is in charge of reserve areas. There's a reserve area at Tobiano. Don't mine underneath Tobiano, basically. It was put in place 20 years ago. Ministry of Mines, for whatever reason, canceled that reserve. You can mine now, or you can explore underneath Tobiano. Hey, this isn't right. I raised that issue. Oh yeah, you might be right. But there doesn't seem to be anything following up. And I raised this with Alex at least 6 months ago. So I was hoping I might be able to get an update. And particularly when we're dealing with OCPs, because I went to the OCP, the Savanaugh Cherry Creek OCP, and it says, oh yeah, there's mining in the area, and our OCP fits with the mine thing. But there doesn't seem to be any communication. Alex says that he wasn't getting notices from the Ministry of Mines. And so I think as we go through the two major OCPs that right now, we ought to be on top of what is the ministry's position with respect to exploration and mining under rural settlements. Because I don't think that they would introduce a mine on Victoria Street, I don't think that they would allow exploration, but they are seemingly oblivious to the fact that there are rural communities that that maybe should have reserves or some step involved about exploration and mining. So that if that can be a takeaway, that'd be great. Thank you, Chair.
Next on is Director Houghton.
Thank you. I think a lot of them have already been covered. Is when we took this challenge on 2.5 years ago, I guess it's coming up 3 now, to be a director here. I've been thinking about it lately, probably since Silga, maybe but long before that is, and maybe the boundaries meeting might have something to do with it, but I would take a long, hard look at rebranding our title and rebranding our areas that we serve. Because if you're an electoral area director of Area L, really, what does that mean? And I think this day and age, we can have something a little more modern. And as a joke yesterday, I had an Argo street sweeper come by my door. Imagine that, an Argo street sweeper in Nutsford. And the water truck. So I sent it to my contact at Argo. And I said, well, you must know we have a meeting coming up tomorrow on highways. They're on the agenda. Thank you for street sweeping Governor Houghton's roadway. He thought that was pretty neat. Yeah, actually, I got that title somewhere else, but I won't say where. But I won't say that's a title we should have. But I think it's pretty humorous. It's at least, yeah. So as far as we always look for the bad things that are happening, I think there's a lot of good things happening within our areas and how we deal with government ministries and advocacy, working with Corbin and the staff and the outcomes that we've done here in the last 2.5, coming on 3 years. I got nothing really, earth-shattering bad. I mean, we all want better roads and we all want the things that we talked about this morning, healthcare and hospitals and who's responsible for what. And I think when we get these phone calls, like I've got over these graveled side roads the last few days, at least it makes the people know that you're there. I mean, whether it's our job to make sure, but I think it's our job to look after the citizens and just say, oh, it's not our responsibility. Here's Argo's 1-800 number. Well, that's kind of pawning it off. And I think that we've done remarkably well as EA directors, fitting into doing the jobs that I don't think any of us knew what we were supposed to do when we signed on here. So as far as some things that are coming down the pike, the wind power projects are one that are going to be coming in everybody's area. And I think the Ministry of Energy can do a lot better job. I'll compare them to the Ministry of Water Stewardship back in 23 when they had zero consultation. That's about where the Ministry of Energy is today with residents who are going to be affected by these. And I don't mean a few miles away. I'm talking right out their back door in Monty Lake and Westwold. The people there had no caption that this was, that was other than us getting an information letter at a meeting, which I did forward it on to the different people responsible. Really, they had no context of what was coming. And then to all of a sudden have 8 or 9 of these introduced basically overnight, and everybody clapping their hands and it all sounds good. And yeah, we need more power, but we need consultation too. And I think they can take a lesson from the Ministry of Water Stewardship on how to work with people. And at the end, they'll probably have a better outcome. So if there's advocacy, can talk to Mr. Dix. I've been thinking that would be a stronghold for other ones that are going to come down. I know right now the Ministry of Energy and BC Hydro are in conflict up in Logan Lake area with some folks that I know over a land right away, and that one could get pretty ugly, but we'll leave that one for another day. But I think that's about all. I think we work together. I think Silga, we've come, the few Silgas we've been to as a working group and that, but I think our identity could be better. I think it's up to us to do that. Nobody should do it for us. So we can dream up a rebranding but just carry your title with whatever we're called and carry it with pride. I think we're all doing a fantastic job for looking after the rural citizens of British Columbia. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, look, it's my turn. Director Laird, thank you. Anyway, I would just like to update you as to where we're at with the fire service protection at Harmon Estates. We've had a meeting with the few residents that were in residence when we had the meeting. I think there was 8 property owners out of 30 that are actually living at Harmon Estates and came to the meeting. We did have a fire there just prior to the meeting, and it was quite obvious that anything that they had told me they were capable of doing is for fire protection. First of all, there was only 8 residents there, and the fire department got to the site in 18 minutes. They put the fire out, and it was heading to one of the most expensive houses in the subdivision. You can see now how many close they came to actually losing it. There's 2 pine trees that the fire was halfway up, getting ready to kindle, and the fire department got there and put that out. So we've had a meeting, and one of the discussions was putting in a dry fire hydrant. I was just wondering if Jamie's got an update on where the dry hydrant is and whether we can get application to have that done.
No update on this process yet. The next step would be we are following up with a letter to the community to confirm next steps, and then we could work on that.
Do we have, if we're going to put a dry hydrant in, do we have to actually get information? How would we, I think the dry hydrant is important because as far as I can see, the fire service is going to stay. Can we start on getting information on when we have to deal with highways and also get a budget put together for it? Because as far as it's coming out of our community improvement fund to install that at the lake, is there any way of getting basic cost or processing started?
Yeah, the permit process with MOTI and with Flinro for the water access, but the capital project would be added to the 2026 capital plan. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think they'll get it in before 2026. They'll have to do it at low water in the next spring. And I had another item. Oh yeah, our OCP. We've had a couple of meetings at their OCP and working with staff in Thompson-Nicola, we were looking at possible ways of increasing the density with either adding, allowing additional housing, either as another house or what do they call them, the gate houses. We can put a garage in and have a house on top of it. And after meeting with the Lower Nicola Water District, there is no water available. They are maxed out on the water they can supply with the current situation of the water system. So we can't even put into our OCP that there's a possibility of allowing infill within the water district because they don't have the water to supply the community. So it's another issue around small water systems. And it's made, it's very obvious if you're in the regional district and you have a water system that you're maintaining and looked after, you need the ability to encourage either infilling or new housing. So the water system, without a good competent water system, growth is not possible. Wells are very hard now to get approval of, to have a well placed on your property. So we really rely on our small water districts. And it's so key. We need to get funding, some kind of funding, especially for the water districts that are in a local improvement district. I'm not allowed to finance with my community improvement fund. So that they're basically, and they've been looking for funding from the provincial government or anywhere to actually do some of the improvements that need to get done other than from just the residents paying their water bill every month. So it is a real problem, even with looking at future development in our communities. I think that was it. Next on the agenda is Director Graham.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wish I had some success stories to share with everyone, but I don't, so I'll share a struggle. The community of Brookmere has suffered from floods and fires, and my attempts to assist them to recover from these disasters has been less than successful, and quite frankly, it's been frustrating to say the least. Now, what they need is help with their water reservoir that was damaged from the flood. They need some help with fire suppression when another forest fire comes along, so they can stay it off until forestry shows up. And they know they need a community place to meet, and the renovation of an old schoolhouse would work perfect. And I'm not sure if, like Director Smith would say, stay the course, would work in a case like this. But I guess that's what I'll have to do. Thank you.
Next on the list is Director Hayward.
Well, when you're at the bottom of a list, most of your questions are answered. So that's a pretty good deal. You're going to say she never says anything. She doesn't have to say much, I guess. So one question I'm getting in my electoral areas, because many of our people are on wells, is what happens if their wells go dry, which is a concern. And I know that's really not up to us. That's Ministry of Water, Lands, etc. Actually, it's up to God. But so I'm wondering if there's a possibility, perhaps maybe in one of our newsy items or something, we could drop some hints off to people, like, you know, just in case with water levels and so on and so forth, maybe it would be smart to have 10 bottles of water in your basement, you know, and that kind of thing. So that just if needed, or if there's a fire comes through and your water lines are shut off, that's a constant that we found in years when fires were on, that nobody had any water at home. You know, that they had a bottle of water in the fridge, but they didn't have maybe a big bottle that would get their family through a week or whatever. So I'm just thinking possibly just some hints of, you know, we're hinting about what to do with fires, how to get your grab and go bag ready. But what about just if water stops? And we're getting a lot of people in our area that are moving up from the lower mainland, and they have absolutely no idea that you can't turn the tap on and water comes out of it. And that's a hard thing too. So I just find lately I've been talking to a lot of people and saying, yes, but think about water, you know, think about what do you do if you don't have water? So it's not like you can run to the store and get water. If it's Sunday, the store is closed in that out of the way area. So it's just it's a process. It's a tip thing. What else was I gonna ask? I was wondering, I probably didn't need to ask you this, it's meeting, but most of our areas, if we do have wildfires and things, we're dealing with livestock evacuations and places that are opening their doors and helping people to put their horses up or cows up or whatever it is. Is there a process or a funding stream that they could ask for help to buy hay or whatever? Or are we kind of going back to the old days where we had to go and beat up on Douglas Lake or somebody to get hay from? Jamie?
Sure. So if I understand the question correctly, like if they're evacuated during an emergency?
No, I'll back up. If the fall fairgrounds, for example, or somebody else's fairgrounds or somebody else's big stable is suddenly inundated with all of these evacuated animals, is there something in the TNRD they could contact? Or are we on our own? Other than I know that BC Horse Council will provide costs for hay for horses.
Yeah, so the way it would work is that under an evacuation, that entity that's taking them on acts as what's called a buddy farm. And then under the provincial program, they're compensated a per head, per animal based on the species of animal for the feeding costs.
So there is a program.
There is a program,
Okay.
but some in this room may know that some of the challenges have been that per head cost is not enough money to make it worthwhile. And so less and less farms are willing to take on those animals because they were doing it at a loss. Last year, we were feeling good about ourselves because we were successful last year that they were able to, we advocated for them to increase that compensation, which the Buddy Farms were very pleased with and able to take care of the animals during last year. However, the bad news is it was not a permanent change. It was a temporary change just for last year. So we're still asking and hoping that there'll be some sort of permanent increase to that compensation.
Okay, thank you. That answers my question. And what was my one other question? Okay, this question I got today, but I'm going to ask it here because probably some of our other areas have this already. Our Eco Depot in Lewis Creek does not have a share shed. I understand there are some places have share sheds. I don't know if they're in the TNRD. What's the answer for these people that want a share shed?
I'll answer that one. The topic of share sheds have been discussed at this board for my whole time here. There's been multiple reviews and reports through the Solid Waste Committee. The direction of this board has been to not implement share sheds. So that's the answer I could.
Is there no reasoning? That's my problem. They want to know why. And to me, I can think of liability, where it came from, what happened to it, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, there's I could share the report of the 11 reasons that were given of why we weren't recommending going down that route. But yeah, the best way I could summarize it is that when you go down the road of a share shed, and I totally get why people want them, but if you do it properly, you're operating it under the same model as a thrift store. Whether you're selling it for money or giving it away, it needs to be a safe area to put it. You need to manage your inventory. You need to only take in stuff that's not garbage and not dangerous, and you're responsible for it. So following that logic all the way through, why do our solid waste facilities exist and how they're currently operating is they exist to get rid of things that are at the end of their life. If things are not at the end of their life, we encourage people, don't bring them to the Eco Depot. Sell them, give them away, put them on your end of the driveway with a free sign, share them on Marketplace, bring them to a thrift store. If the thrift store doesn't want them, if your neighbor doesn't want it for free, chances are no one wants it at the Eco Depot. I know not everyone would agree with that, and I know there is successful models out there, but one of our challenges and the challenge that this board struggled with making this decision was around the scale of those facilities. So could we successfully operate a small share shed in Vavenby? Probably. How do we operate one the same model in Clearwater and in Barrier and in Chase, where we get more public? So we recommended and the board supported a policy that applies to all facilities.
That's great. Thank you.
Chair Laird, if I could just answer one more question from Director Haywood.
Yes, go ahead.
You talked about water and conservation and providing some tips and advice, and I just got a message from Colton because he's listening online and he will make sure that he's on top of that.
Great. That's super. Thank you.
Director Smith, you had a question?
Just to follow up to the share shed, I'll give you a personal experience. I took my 7-year-old granddaughter to the share shed at the Watch Lake dump, which is in the CRD. And I ended up with 7 kittens at my home later, so.
Director Sal?
Thank you, Chair. Also just sharing some input from Area A in terms of share sheds. Yes, I have been asked multiple times, and I've actually received feedback from thrift stores who donate tens of thousands of dollars every year to the hospital, and they've outright said to me, if you go forward with this, you're jeopardizing our operations. And that was one major thing, and the other thing is, it's not going to be free. It's going to be added. You need staff. It's going to be added. It will come down to taxes. And in this day and age of Facebook and Marketplace and everything, there is no excuse for people to shift the responsibility to the TNRD when they feel like it. That, oh, if there's wastage, then that's your fault that I just dumped stuff. No, take responsibility. And I've talked to the folks who reached out to me, they wanting the share shed. I've repeatedly told them, why don't you guys form a society, or for, if you have private property, you want to do it on your own, do it. You don't have to bring it to the TNRD and increase government size and stuff, which people were always against. And all of a sudden they want us to increase our jurisdiction. So that's just my feelings about that.
Thank you. That's super.
So it's now your turn, Lee. You're the last one on the list, Director Morris. Next time we'll run it the other way around.
Are we gonna flip the alphabet one of these days? That's, oh, yeah, area P. I'll be fairly quick. I guess, one of the things I just wanted to comment in general is the importance of this group. And its gathering and the intel that we share. And this need to have this on a monthly basis, in my opinion, because the scope of what we are expected to understand and be able to decipher and to share with our constituents is soup to nuts. It is all kinds of things. So I think this continued focus to make sure that we can gather and to discuss all of these things is pretty critical stuff. That aside, you heard my conversations with the Ministry of Transportation and Highways. I'm glad that they were here. And certainly from some years ago, when I was involved even as an alternate prior to getting elected, I see quite a change in the listening and the conversations that are happening with them. And I think that that's a really important piece on that. I haven't heard a lot on egress routes, but again, I have been very pleased with pretty much what they have been able to come to the table. Here's the one on my agenda that's still a thorn in my side. And that is very clearly Crown land use, Crown land misuse, lack of available resources in terms of the humans with the uniforms. And we have to pay more attention to this somehow. Yes, it's a federal issue, but it's not. It's affecting, certainly with Area P, as you can well imagine. I've got every pocket has responded in some sense to this package that I gave Ministry of Transportation and Highways on a number of fronts, but every pocket has issues and concerns and around Crown land and under resources to deal with it. And how many times I bet every one of us has gone to somewhere within their electoral area and faced certainly something that I faced fairly recently, which was somewhat unpleasant. And so I think we need to keep on it for sure on that front. Reinforcing the need for the resources in terms of humans on the ground on that one. And then just a fun one, schools and being able to get some kids in there and gymnastics classes and stuff. Anybody doesn't have to say much even today, but we're again trying to figure out how a community like Pinnatan that does have a structure, does have a school that they could use. How do we dialogue again with school districts to try and take those sorts of structures and make them a useful part as they want to be of the community. And that's it for me in that length of time. Any questions?
Thank you. Any other questions? Director Sell.
Thank you. Sorry, one more that came up in my mind. I don't know, won't name the directors because I didn't ask them for permission to share this, but just getting the experiences of some interactions between directors and the public. It's not always positive. In our recent year, we talked about providing a safe workplace for staff, which we 100% back, of course. Conversely, I would like to see some recommendation or suggestion by Ms. Bennett, on what resources could be available to elected officials. And not for me personally, I've been okay, but there are some, if staff is being bullied, we would never say that, well, there's nothing we can do about it. But if a elected official, there is this thought that, well, you elected, you knew this is it comes with your territory, but I think should be a line, I think. So yeah, thank you.
Chair Laird, to follow up on Director Sau's comment, we can follow up with the entire committee on that one because it's a bit more difficult when it comes to elected officials. But we can certainly kind of share the information that we're aware of and have a discussion if we need to.
Go ahead, Joe.
I just want to touch base on Lee's comment about the public on Crown land. We had an incident at our own ranch the other day where we had a fellow who came to our gate and said he was going through our property to get to his mining claim on the creek up the top behind our property. And that was quite an argument with my husband. Fortunately, my husband didn't kill the guy, so that was a good thing. Otherwise, I'd have been sitting down at the police office. But that's been consistent in the 30 years that we've lived there, because there's a creek that they pan for gold. And apparently, I don't understand mining claims, but they get a certain section of the creek where they can pan. But they're being given claims to this creek that is not really accessible unless they go through private property. And that's really frustrating. And I mean, fortunately, my husband didn't kill him, but everybody survived. But that's been going on for 20 years at our place. And the other thing that's starting to happen is we're starting to get a lot of people coming up from the Lower Mainland that are just getting out of their cars and walking trails, walking wherever they want to go. There's no respect in that end of things at all. I don't know if that's nothing we can probably do anything about, but it's growing. So I think probably a lot of our electoral areas are going to start hearing from their constituents that people are starting to get pretty frustrated to find out that there's a family and 3 dogs out in the middle of their cow pasture having a picnic. You know, it's crazy, but yeah, it's just be aware.
Director Grenier.
Thank you, Chair. I didn't know if you wanted to. Okay.
So is there any other discussion on the roundtable? Okay. As the board knows, I made a notice of motion that I would ask for 2 EA directors to be added to our finance committee. And I spoke with Director Grenier about how we should work at introducing this. And Director Grenier has put together a spreadsheet for us to understand exactly how much EA directors are putting into the budget and how much municipal funding is there. I'll just let Director Grenier explain it all. It's quite straightforward and quite easy to follow. Yes.
Chair Laird, if I may, just share some perspective. I know you gave me a heads up on this just before, and I know we all love process and procedures, so I need to share some facts just to make sure that everyone's comfortable. And I say this respectfully, that we're concerned about this discussion happening at the committee level. It wouldn't be following normal procedure because a notice of motion was made by you. And the whole point of a notice of motion is for that to be then carried to immediately the next board meeting, for that debate, discussion, and decision to happen. And to have it prior to that meeting isn't proper procedure. It's not transparent. And we could be challenged on it. So I share that with for your consideration. So I just need you to be aware of how that notice of motion process works.
So are you suggesting that we shouldn't have this discussion?
I'm just saying that it wouldn't be procedurally correct based on notice of motion and what you provided last meeting. It's supposed to come to the board, and it is on the agenda this afternoon to be discussed there. So having it ahead of time puts the rest of the board at a disadvantage without hearing the same information. So that's the procedural part of it, and I just needed to share that with you.
I'll ask the board, are we going to proceed with this conversation? Will we wait for the meeting this afternoon? Director Sal?
With this, the challenge you say, is that like, could somebody challenge and jeopardize the motion and just void it in total if it was challenged and found valid? Is that
I didn't know there
risk?
would be a motion, or like, this is all new to me this morning, so I have no idea that it's not on the agenda, and we asked to have it added. So I'm just kind of reacting to it now. So if there's a motion coming, I'm not aware of the motion. And then that could in fact be challenged because it's, yeah.
Sorry, I'm just wanting to know what's the bottom line risk? The risk is the risk that in the end, the motion can be voided because we had this conversation here.
Yeah, the motion is this afternoon, right? So that's where it's procedurally, that's where a notice of motion was made last meeting. And the procedure is for this board to then hear it in full, debate it, discuss it, make a decision at this afternoon's meeting. And now it's happening before with a limited portion of the board. That's my concern.
Thank you. No, sorry. I'm just trying to realize the consequences for our, Chair Liar just asked us for our input, whether or not we should have this conversation. Would the consequences of us saying, yes, let's have this conversation right now, would the consequences be that the motion, when it does come to the board, then it would be rejected and
Not from our perspective. I mean, I'm just letting you know the proper procedure. That's all.
Director Onslow?
Thank you very much, Chair. Just based on the fact that you've asked for this board's opinion, I think that we should follow the procedure that is already laid out and not have this discussion at this committee meeting. Because I think if we do hold this discussion, there is the potential of us versus them, which is not what we want. So my opinion is that we hold off on this conversation and we bring it procedurally correct to the board.
Director Houghton?
I was just going to add, would it be procedurally correct if this document was shared this afternoon to all the directors and discussed then instead of just us?
Certainly could, but that would be up to the board to receive it and up to the chair to receive it. And because it's happening the day of the meeting, it could have happened prior. So that was some of the debate we've had in the past where people are surprised by information and data, and then it becomes a discussion and debate. So we're just trying to be proactive.
I think the idea of the spreadsheet that was put forward was just for information for the directors as to exactly how our budgets work and how the percentage of taxes that are collected. To me, I thought it was information, but I might be wrong. That was.
You're absolutely right. It's basic general information, absolutely. But could also be part of that debate with the board. And to be honest, I mean, I've received multiple emails this morning asking me so many questions about this topic that's why I'm feeling it should happen as a board. And that's why I'm kind of just sharing, sorry to be the Debbie Downer, but I'm just sharing the proper procedure.
Director Gagne.
I certainly don't want to get involved with being out of sequence here. This information I'm happy to share now, later, whenever. It's just the factual information from our budgets, and it might help people understand who's paying what and put it in perspective. So whenever people are interested to hear this information, I'm fine with it.
Jill, go ahead, please.
I just want to say I agree with Lee that we really don't want to be seen as them against us. It's a really good information, and I think for most of us here, we know what our area is, and we can look up and see what our amount is, and the discussion is there for future, but I don't really think we need to probably beat it up here because we all have the information. So I think we should follow Scott's suggestion that we do it the right way, and we don't want people to think that it's them against us. And that is exactly what will happen.
Yeah, it wasn't meant that way at all. It was just information for the directors, so they could understand the budget and how it works. But I will
I think
take
you're
your,
100% right.
I will
Your
take
intention
your
was-
recommendation, and can we have this circulated for the meeting this afternoon?
We can request the chair
Yeah.
to do
Oh,
that.
the
yeah.
chair is here. Could we have this circulated this afternoon?
Yes. Brevity is the soul of
was
it.
easy.
One thing I would just suggest, Director Grenier, I know you've already made copies of this. I would just maybe a clarification. You have down at the bottom, finance current or finance committee representation, current proposed. So the proposed is that there be 3 electoral area directors, 2 from large municipalities, 2 from small municipalities. The current is not quite correct in that the finance committee terms of reference says that there shall be at least, there will be 5. one of whom will be an EA director, one of whom will be from a small municipality, one of whom will be from a large municipality, and the other two can be anyone. So as it's configured at the moment, depending on who actually applies to be on that committee, you could have 3 electoral area directors, 1 large, 1 small. So just to clarify, because it looks like the current setup is that there is only 1 EA representative on the finance committee. There could be there has to be at least 1, there could be as many as 3. So just to clarify, that's all.
Thank you for the clarification. I prepared this for Director Laird, and I'm happy to make any changes, or if there's an error, I'm happy to acknowledge that. In this particular case, I was simply trying to connect for Director Laird the expenditures of the different areas relative to the makeup of the finance committee, and whether the finance committee was reflecting who paid what. And the current column is just simply literally where the 5 directors come from. So that was the intent, not to, and just to show where we are and what the motion was attempting to achieve. But again, we want to talk about this some other time. So I'm quite happy to defer any of that.
Yes, Scott.
Thank you, Chair Laird. Just to make sure I'm 100% clear too, you're absolutely right. The information, other than that technicality, is 100% factual. From a staff perspective, we're just going on what the previous board has told us to do, and that would be, in 2022, we actually overhauled every committee we have in the organization. This was the decision of that board, is to go from 3 to 5. We went from an audit committee to a finance committee. So we are just simply following that direction. So now that there's a notice of motion on there, that's why I'm saying we should follow the proper procedure to ensure the entire board hears it all, here's all the facts, could potentially get behind it. I don't know what the answer will be, but I just want to make sure we're doing it right. That's all. So I support your information. The other requirement is when we put out agendas publicly, we have to do that a week ahead, and we try to, and sometimes there's changes where there's last minute correspondence and things like that, but the requirement is for us to provide information to the board and the public 5 days or a week in advance. So that's why they come out on Thursdays. So sharing information, the chair can, I think, override that, and we're going to potentially add this to the information into blue folders. So that would be the only way to do it. I just wanted to make sure that everyone knew the information.
Yes, Carla.
Thank you, Director Laird. Additionally, on the information that's provided, it may be good to say prepared by and who it's prepared by. I think one of the things that I would caution is, as CAO Hildebrandt has said, with the 5 days notice and the information that you receive financially from us as staff, it's vetted, we check it, we make sure it's accurate information that's being provided. When a member of the board provides you information, we haven't vetted it, we haven't checked it. We can't stand behind the information. So again, just to make sure that we're aligned, if the information comes through as staff are expected to within an agenda that's given to you 5 days before for transparency and time for you guys to take that information in. So you can see some of the misalignment. If information is coming through, it doesn't say who it's from. We can't verify or guarantee it's correct. It's a bit concerning from this side. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Is the board want to present this with this information tomorrow at our regular meeting, or we could actually supply the information, have it vetted by staff, and bring it forward at our next directors meeting, board meeting? Would that be more advisable?
Chair Laird, the only concern would be the debate and discussion of your notice of motion is on the agenda this afternoon. So it might be, a decision may be made there, but we can certainly take this information to another committee meeting of this committee. But the timing is difficult right now because it's on the agenda this afternoon for discussion.
Director Onslow.
I'm just curious, what if we actually just had the discussion without seeing the percentages and make the request to modify the committee and not even submit the form? Like potentially, it could just be a debate that's held to ask for a change to the committee.
That would probably be the way to do it.
That's what you've already asked for, and you noted the motion exactly
Yeah.
what the committee is, and it was, I believe, 3 EAs, 2 municipal, 2 city of Kamloops.
Yes, yeah.
So that's already kind of the motion that was put forward, and now the board this afternoon will take that in, hear all sides and decide if that goes forward or not. So that's kind of where we're at.
Okay, well, I guess we'll go forward and just present it as a motion to add 3 extra 2 members to the finance committee, being EA directors. That's agreeable to everybody. I'll do that. No problem with that. What's that?
Would you do it without?
Yeah,
the form?
yeah.
Yeah, I'm agreeable to that.
I just brought this forward for information so everybody knew what was going on. It might be worthwhile circulating the information, but it can be done anytime. Thank you. Is there any other business for this meeting? Then I guess we're adjourned. Thank you.